All right, as usual, we're just going to get right into it. We're going to get right into it. We're going to jump in as confidently as Donald Trump jumped into this war with Iran, about as confidently as Hitler did after his victories in France. Coming off the backs of the Venezuela Maduro capture, Donald Trump was riding high. Donald Trump was riding high. He was getting little birdies in his ear, Netanyahu and Mossad saying it was going to be a one-day thing. Pete Hegseth basically saying, yep, everything they're saying is good, boss. Everything they're saying is good, boss. But once again, Donald Trump getting absolutely kicked in the face by Iran. We're going to go over it all. A lot of what today's show is going to cover about the Strait of Hormuz and things like this. Let me throw this on the screen real quick. We don't have to dive into it just yet, but articles like this from the Wall Street Journal. And what's up, Chad? Appreciate you guys. I'll be saying hi to you in just a second. But this is it's too much for me. It's too much for me. Let me just hold on for a second here. That way you're not over the face. But, Wall Street Journal reporting that Trump thought opening the Strait of Hormuz was imminent. We've talked about how they were jumping on the backs of that Iran-Omani negotiation talks that were going on, that basically, the United States was attaching themselves to talks that stated that Russia and China weren't going to have to pay the tolls, so it was going to benefit our enemies. But yeah, we got things like this that we got to talk about today. We got articles like this as well from the New York Times. Let me throw this on the screen if it'll ever get there. Come on, you can do it. You can do it. There you go. The U.S. is burning through weapons in Iran. Russia and China are taking note. Another thing that we've been consistently warning about and talking about here on Blunt Politics is the fact that our enemies, bad actors all around the world, are going to take notice at the fact that the United States does not have the stockpiles to be engaged in multiple engagements, multiple wars in different theaters on the globe right now. So if they were looking for a time to strike, they're looking at the United States right now, and they're kind of, as I continue to say, frothing at the mouth. But all right, before we get ahead of ourselves, what do you say we say hi to the chat? Let's bring you guys in here once again. You guys deserve some screen time, as I always say. Appreciate you guys for making this possible. Hit that like button on the way and subscribe to the channel. My name's Brian. This is Blunt Politics. We are just the little political podcast that keeps going, trying to call out the bullshit, the lies, the propaganda, the mainstream media, Donald Trump, the Republican Party. Obviously covering what's going on with geopolitics as well, whether that be the war in Iran, what's going on between Russia and Ukraine. I appreciate it if you to take the time out of your day to kind of sit here with the community that we've built and go through the news, go through the opinions, go through the facts with me. So that would be fantastic if you could continue to do that. Graphene, how are you? I see you over there. What's up, Karen? What's up, Dame? What's up, Alvin? BJ, shout out to you. What's up, Ian? What's happening, Dame? I appreciate you, brother. What's up, Forever Young? What's up, Will? I smoke and I know things is here. We see you. You can't hide anyway. You couldn't hide. You couldn't hid if you wanted to. What's up, Jim? Luck Dragon, what's going on? Slightly Mad Mom, how are you? Alton, what's going on, my man? How are you? What's happening, guys? Hit that like button on the way in. Lady Muddy Feet's in the house. Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday fun day. Smoke them if you got them. If you're already into the adult beverages, congratulations. Have yourself a day. Guitar guy, what's going on? No, I'm not going to ignore you. Can't ignore you. I don't ignore anybody in the chat. Not purposefully, at least. What's going on, Julie? How are you? Yeah, we got a lot to talk about. So it's Sunday, August 9th. Again, thank you for taking the time out of your weekend. Hope you guys are enjoying your weekend. Hope you're enjoying the sunshine, if it's shining, wherever you're watching from. But yeah, we got a ton to talk about. More polls that are showing that Trump's grip over MAGA is dead, dying, dead, gone, whatever you want to call it. So there's a CNN clip there that we want to take a look at. Again, that Wall Street Journal article detailing Iran's continued demands, seemingly the same demands that they've been making the entire time, while Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth and Marco Rubio were telling everybody that a deal was, and Scott Bessent were telling everybody that a deal was just on the horizon any second now. Just look at your watches, count to 10, and we should have a deal any second now. Just ask Barack Ravid. Just ask Trey Yingst of Fox News, and they'll tell you, because I called them and told them to tell you. But anyway, that's irrelevant to the point. So we got that article to talk about, the New York Times article that I referenced, reporting how our enemies are taking note of our low stockpiles, which is never good. The fact that Netanyahu rejected a Trump-backed Gaza peace plan, continuing to show that he's more than willing to continue this war with Iran by his goddamn self. Israel by their lonesome. He's basically showing that he does not have trust. He does not have confidence in the United States government or the military to continue or to stand behind its demands. So he's talking about how he's more than willing to go at this alone. I think that's covered in multiple, if not a few, of the different articles that we'll be taking a look at. So We also have a CNN clip reporting that Trump's top general, Dan Kane, wants out of the Iran war. So he's looking for off ramps. He's looking for any way possible to get the U.S. military out of this engagement because he sees that, like he said before, in, I believe, I think it was like last month or so, he was in front of Congress, basically stating that it's not an air campaign alone that could ever win this war, right? There's got to be either boots on the ground if you're going the whole hog, or you got to combine this with some negotiations. You got to combine this with some sort of, peace talks, some sort of, sending dignitaries together at some point and not just bombing the shit out of each other. So he's continuing to show his displeasure in the situation. So we'll take a look at a couple of clips from that. The Houthis have expanded the conflict now, killing 50 plus in a single strike. We have a Preston Stewart video detailing a little bit more on that situation. We have Ukraine's big night destroying military targets all over the place, and then some more brutal updates on the Russian losses coming from the month of July. So please stick around. We got a lot to get to. Thank you again to the chat. Double salute to everybody, and especially the mods here. I can't thank you guys enough. I've been very blessed with the most fantastic mods since the beginning, since the onset of this little podcast, this little live stream, and I continue to be blessed to have them. So thank you guys so much. If you're just joining us for the first time, please make sure you look to see if you're subscribed. If you like what you're hearing, if you like what you're seeing, if you like the community that we've built here, if you like the family, please hit that subscribe button. It's free to do so. Liking, sharing, subscribing, all that stuff is free. If you do want to make a contribution, you can do so. There's a Venmo up in the left-hand corner here. Well, probably your right-hand corner. But yeah, that's the quickest and easiest way to get the $1 or $2 that we ask for if you want to contribute and can contribute if you're in the financial position to do so. And if you think we're deserving of more than that, nobody's going to stand in your way. But we don't ask for more than $1 or $2 here. It's the independent channel that could, basically. We don't charge for the Substack. No content hidden behind a paywall. There's no ads that are going to be run on my behalf during this podcast, during this live stream. There are no corporate sponsors, financial backers, anything of the such. So it's just your generosity, your appreciation for channels just like this all over the place that are doing great work that continues to keep us running. So much appreciated. Thank you to the people kicking it off already. I saw one before we even went live. I think it was Bry Guy. Yeah, it was Bry. Thank you, Brud. How was date night with mom? Hope it was great. It was awesome. It actually was awesome. So we saw Bob Marley, not that one, obviously, the New England comedian Bob Marley. If you don't know of him, after the show, you're definitely going to have to Google or YouTube, whatever you want to do, Bob Marley. But it was hilarious. It was very, very hot. Unfortunately, I'm sure a lot of people in the chat are going through similar weather patterns, weather conditions where you are. But it was ungodly hot. It just happened to be at an outside tented venue. So not much air to speak of. So that was about the only drawback. The only thing that could have made it more enjoyable if it was a little bit cooler. But otherwise, he killed it. My mom had fun. I went with my brother and my sister also, so it was a great time. Bri, I appreciate you for asking. Thank you so much for that. And also the $2 contribution. And then Wes, thank you for the 1111. I see you in there somewhere. Hold on, I saw it go by. Let me see if I can find you now. It was in here somewhere. Oh, there you are. I see you. There you are, Wes. Appreciate you, brother. Hoping and praying for all wars to cease, and I think we all are. I think we can all second that. So thank you so much, Wes and Bri, for kicking it off in the right direction. You guys, too, can follow in their footsteps there with a super chat or a super sticker in the chat, or you can gift out memberships just underneath me and sign up for them yourselves, too. You can also go out to patreon.com/BostonBrian. 3 great tiers in there, whichever meets your financial capabilities. That would be fantastic if you could help out the show that way as well. All right. What do you say we get into, like I continue to say and always say, a little bit of the nonsense, a little bit of the craziness. Oh, thank you, Allison. I see that $5 on Venmo that just came in. Thank you so much for that. Very, very much appreciate you guys continuing to support the show the way you do. It really means the world that you see some value, that you see some reason and benefit to be here every single day. Or at least the days that we have shows. But all right, let's see if we can jump into this, because this is a little bit out of left field, I should say, or probably center court if we're going by this actual story, not this one, but this one. I don't know if you guys have heard this now, but there have now been 2 former NBA players that are trying to, again, make a mockery of the WNBA, trying to utilize whatever political fights are going on in this country to gain relevance, to get back into the spotlight. So, having grown up playing sports my entire life, having had been fortunate enough to play with females in high school activities, high school sports, shared locker rooms, had to make that work in our hockey team for high school. So, know a little bit about what's going on here. And the fact that these idiots, and I think Inez Cantor was the other one, and then Royce White here, a guy that I don't think averaged a single point in the NBA, if I'm not mistaken, was actually too afraid to fly. So he was just kicked off the teams, like made the NBA and then told everybody, no, I don't want to fly. I want to take a bus everywhere. And they were like, well, get the fuck out of here. You're not that good anyway. So he's here, and he's the second person that's now declaring himself eligible for the 2027 WNBA draft, claiming that he now identifies as transgender for the purpose of playing professional basketball, quite literally putting into practice Donald Trump's ridiculous statements and rhetoric about, Mike Tyson could box and LeBron James could go to the WNBA. Well, these fucking morons, right, feel like, well, now's my time to shine, right? Well, I could go out there. I'm not doing anything. I never made a name for myself in the real NBA, so maybe I could do this here and get on Fox News for a couple clips, and people could be, typing my name into social media, and maybe I'll get some clicks and followers out of this. But yeah, he's the second one, and Inez Cantor was the first one. But let me see here. I'll just play real quick how just mainstream and stupid his arguments are. Like, oh yeah, some days I feel like I'm a man. I thought I was a man, but now apparently I'm a woman. Like, just the most mainstream conservative bullshit propaganda style nonsense that you could possibly think of. So I felt it necessary to start off here to call these fucking bozos out. Like, my feelings on this is, if we're talking in general terms about the physical capabilities about men over women is one thing, but if you're going by a case by case basis, like, I know a lot of women that would kick the shit out of a lot of the guys that I know as well. Like, that's just the way it works. Like, it's not a in totality, it's not a generalization that you could make about everybody in every circumstances in every case. And that's why we have agencies and committees and people that run the leagues, and there's owners and things like that can stipulate and make the rules for whatever league we're talking about, whatever age that we're talking about, where it doesn't need to be Fox News and the government getting involved. Right? I mean, there's a case by case basis that you could look at. Okay, does this person have a physical advantage over everybody in the league? Is there something clearly that's going to show us that it's going to be a danger to other people playing in this league? If not, right? If the danger is posed to them, if they're even smaller than a lot of people playing in the league, which in some cases that could be. Like, clearly the advantages that you could see on a general basis between male and female is not the same thing. You know what I mean? It's crazy. But here's just a quick clip of this moron who, again, never made a name for himself in the NBA because he was too fucking afraid to fly, trying to make a name for himself on Fox News by just basically taking Donald Trump's bullshit, Donald Trump's, like, Trump rally speeches and the stupidity that comes out of his mouth and those, and literally, like, acting it out in real life. Check this out.
Oh, earlier this week, I made the announcement. I'm transgender. I'm a woman. I identify as sometimes identifying as a woman for purposes of basketball, professional basketball. So I'll be declaring for the WNBA draft in 2027 as well. I mean, I think I'd be unstoppable. But I'm
just an absolute fucking moron, clearly making a mockery of not only the WNBA, but obviously the challenges that are faced by the transgender community in this country and all over the world, right? Don't want to single out anybody that may be watching the show, regardless of where you're watching from. So it's crazy to see this, and like, grown men coming out there and throwing their soul away, like, just becoming the most shameless, stupid piece of propaganda that you could possibly think of, and then literally trying to act that out in real life to get, again, a couple clicks, maybe a couple followers from some right-wing bigots, some racist people that couldn't give a fuck less about him anyway. Like, as soon as he stops talking about this, or as soon as this stops being politically beneficial, or somebody actually puts him in his place, these same racist, bigoted morons that he's fucking, pandering to right now are going to be the first people to call him the N-word. First person to say, that he's dirty and, should be removed from this country. But meanwhile, he's sitting there trying to pander to this crowd. Same thing with Inez Cantor. Right? Same thing with Inez Cantor. You think Inez Cantor, the MAGA crowd, looks at you guys and is like, oh yeah, he's one of us. Let's welcome him into the club, into the cult. even though he may not have some political expediency, some political benefit that we could use, like bullshit. Like, who you guys think you're fooling on this? I don't know. But again, these morons, again, in Fox News, lapping it up. You can see this post here. So what you're telling us is that the threat to women's sports was never from trans women and always from loser males, which I think was very well put by Ari Drennan, whoever that is, but she was spot on as far as this is concerned. But I just wanted to, again, I couldn't let that go without at least touching on it at some point during the show. So I appreciate you for letting me get that out. But it just, again, to see these fucking disgusting people trying to, again, scapegoat, the transgender community where they are so demonized already is just sickening, right? And it to see Fox News obviously propagate this, to see them pump this up, and to be salivating at the mouths to have, him and Inez Cantor on to talk about this in some serious way. Like, it was just a joke. He went on with, I don't know what the douchebag's name was on Fox News, but the guy on Fox News was trying to take it like it was a serious interview, right, from a serious person doing something serious, and he was just making a total and complete mockery of the whole situation. And then he'd throw it back to the Fox News actor, basically, and he'd, try to make it into a real interview with, like, substantiated questions and shit like that. Meanwhile, it's just a moron on the other end of the line trying to get exactly what you're giving him, a little, 5 seconds of fame because he missed it where he didn't have the opportunity because he's a bitch boy and didn't want to fly in a plane, apparently. But all right. Let's get into, before we get into the Wall Street Journal article and the New York Times article talking about what an absolute disaster this Iran war is and continues to be for Donald Trump. The continued demands by Iran make Donald Trump look like an utter fool and show us exactly what's, where we are in this, which is, complete and utter capitulation is probably the best way for us to get out at this point in time. That's as hard as difficult it is to watch and say, like, that's the point in which Donald Trump has brought us to. That's the position that we're in. Like, we just have to walk away. We got to just wipe our hands, try to give the Iranian regime the least amount possible of their demands, and just call them back, call all the forces back. It was a stupid fucking thing to do from the onset. We didn't get lucky. It didn't go the way that Mossad and Benjamin Netanyahu and the Pentagon and Pete Hegseth thought it was going to go. It didn't go like Venezuela. Didn't go like when they were capturing Maduro. That's for goddamn sure, which is exactly what they thought they were going to get. So before we get into that, I want to dive into just a few moments of this segment here by CNN, again, going into Donald Trump's polling numbers. We've gone over a couple clips of these recently, and this is more geared towards the GOP and how MAGA themselves are voting, or at least in these polls are talking about voting. So I just wanted to go through a couple clips. This is Midterm Madness, Trump's blame game, the Dem Revolution, and more. This is from Harry Enton here on CNN. So we don't have to watch this whole thing. I think there's two. I think it's the first and third. Yeah, Trump losing support with MAGA, and then the first one, I believe, is him not doing well with GOP overall, and him trying to state, as he did with his, his interview with Punchbowl News, that he understands that the voters are pissed. He understands that the voters are pissed. He understands that they recognize the lies that they've been fed and the way that they've been propagandized, but they're not mad at him. They're not mad at Donald Trump, ladies and gentlemen. They're mad at Republicans, but somehow they managed to separate Donald Trump, and Donald Trump's managed to separate himself from all of those lies, again, that he was responsible for from his campaign and his rallies, which he said all of these things. But no, he's trying to push that blame off to all of the rest of the Republican Party besides him, taking himself out of that. So this is just a couple clips, couple seconds here, a couple minutes, I should say, from this CNN Harry Enton going over the recent polling, the devastating polling, I should say, that continues for Donald Trump and even the GOP here.
President Trump says voters are angry at Republicans, but not angry at him.
They're not angry at me, but they are angry at Republicans.
Yeah. He's full of it. The president's full of it. I mean, that's just the bottom line. I mean, that is the scientific answer. That's a scientific phrase. I mean, you could just see it here, how voters are feeling. 43% of them in an average of polls are choosing the Republicans for the House. The Republicans for the House are outrunning President Trump. His approval rating is just 37% in an average of polls. They're outrunning him by 6 points. Among independents.
So again, right off the bat, showing whatever statements Donald Trump was making is completely incorrect based on reality, based on whatever polling numbers are out there to look at. Like, the GOP is polling better than Donald Trump if you separate the two. So to say that, everybody loves Trump the way that he was talking about, but everybody's pissed at the Republican Party, like, they're pissed at both. But they're definitely more pissed at Donald Trump, again, based off the fact that he was the one telling these lies more often. He was the one promising these things. He was the one and ultimately getting into office that could get these things done. And they've separated the two out. But, that's the GOP 43% and Trump at 37%, as you can see there, which is basically just disputing directly what Donald Trump was saying in his Punch Bowl interview.
The spread's even wider. I have it as a little nugget down there. The House Republicans are outrunning Donald Trump by 9 points, although they're both doing poorly. But the bottom line is this. When Donald Trump says that voters are angry at Republicans, not him, that, simply put, is not the case looking at the data.
And in fact, when it comes to what voters want to see members doing vis-a-vis Donald Trump, what is it?
What do they want him to do? I mean, it's just really clear here. Take a look here. Voters who want congressional Republicans to do more to stand up to Trump or work with Trump. 56% say more to stand up to Trump. That's what.
And again, these are GOP voters from this specific poll that we're talking about here. Voters that want the congressional GOP to stand up to Trump more is 56%.
They want
and then if you look at the bottom, it says 65% say stand up more if you include independents.
Republicans to do, compared to just 35% who say they want congressional Republicans to work more with them. As I said at the top here, what we're dealing with is Republicans are getting dragged down by Donald Trump, not the other way around. And indeed, among independents, what we're seeing is 65% they want them to say they want congressional Republicans to do to stand up to Trump, more to stand up to Trump. So again, the president.
So again, this is just leading into the ongoing disaster that is the war in Iran. And I think it was this third segment here that I wanted to take a look at, with is more specifically with the MAGA base, if I'm not mistaken here. So let's take a look at this quick clip, and then we can jump into the Wall Street Journal article detailing Iran's recent demands, which sound to me, from what I've heard reported, a whole lot like the recent demands and the demands they've been making this entire time. So we'll go through that and how it makes Donald Trump look an absolute tit once again after this, and how we listen to how Donald Trump's grip on the MAGA base is dying, dead, gone, decrepit, deceased, whatever word you want to use here. This is another poll showing that.
Among the working class, non-college Americans, and take a look at this trend line that we're looking at in the data. Here we go. Okay, net favorability rating, the MAGA movement, non-college adults. Back in October of 2024, look at that. On the plus side of the ledger, positive, plus 6 points. Down we go into the Atlantic Ocean now. Look at this movement. Now minus 22 points. That is a shift, Johnny B, of 28 points away from the MAGA movement, away with non-college Americans. So the bottom line is the group at which the Trump movement was built upon.
And again, that's the whole popularity thing, right? It's once again become unpopular to a large extent to tell everybody that you voted for Donald Trump. We saw Vivek Ramaswamy get booed off the stage recently in Ohio with a largely conservative Republican GOP, whatever you want to say it, crowd that he was facing. And even they were giving him the fucking who, what, where, and when. They were not holding back as far as their displeasure in what he was saying, the things that he was trying to, congratulate himself on and the Republican Party on as far as victories. They weren't having it. So to a certain degree, this is showing you that it's becoming unpopular again to back Donald Trump. Like I said, to say that you voted for Donald Trump. Remember how, in the 2024 range, like we're showing here on the screen, we saw a lot of the colleges and the college kids and the fucking frat houses were, doing the double jerk off dance, and they were putting out TikToks, and they all had Donald Trump suits on in the blue jacket with the fucking red tie, that shit. Now it's the course is reversing again. The tides are turning once again as far as that's concerned, and that's another thing, a spotlight that's giving me hope to show that this country does have the ability to pull out. Whether we absolutely do is another question, but it does give me a glimmer of hope, or a little bit more of a glimmer of hope. I continue to say, not to say that I'm a complete nihilist by any stretch of the imagination, but that we can turn ourselves around, and that once we see the tides turning again, hopefully we can continue that momentum and show everybody exactly how much damage was done by the lies that they were told and the lies that they believed. But let's see here. This goes on to talk about more of Donald Trump's slipping grip on the MAGA cult.
Shifting away and saying we don't like MAGA anymore.
Same question, same poll here. This is really interesting to see these numbers move like that.
Yes, exactly right. It's the same question, same poll.
I mean, why it's interesting, maybe, I guess, is a word you could use as far as this is concerned. Surprising, no. Like, I don't see how anybody could look at the current situation, what the MAGA cult was promised. I mean, the Epstein investigation, no new wars, lowering prices. I mean, the list continues, right? As far as the things that they were promised and how we've seen the complete and total opposite on every one of those data sets. It's not surprising to see that, at least a certain portion of them have woken up. You combine that with Donald Trump's age, his cognitive decline, and his inability to command a crowd, command the cult like he once had the ability to do. As much as we hate and can't stand the guy like he did, you have to recognize his ability to have the control over the base, to lie to them, to get them to believe a lie, to get them to, again, either not believe or totally not even look at the reality, the truth of the matter, whatever it may be, to follow him when he says that an election is stolen. Like, he doesn't have that ability to command them anymore. He doesn't have the vocabulary, not that he ever did, but he doesn't have the cognitive ability. He doesn't have the stamina that he once had, to get out there and spew his bullshit for an hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever it was in his Trump, his Trump rallies that he used to do. Well, let's see here. I think there's one more from this as well.
All right. So how about what the same group is saying about Donald Trump specifically?
Yeah, okay. So you know what? The idea being, okay, maybe they've soured on MAGA, but they haven't soured on MAGA, but maybe they haven't soured on me, Donald Trump might be saying. Ain't the truth. Take a look here. Okay, non-college voters on Trump. Hello. Okay, in the 2024 election, he won them by 13 points, right? That was the reason he won. He won among non-college voters, a very strong performance amongst them. And that, of course, was the reason he was able to win, because college voters were against him. But look at this now. Minus 19 points. Minus 19 points. We're talking about an even bigger shift here. We're talking about, what is this? This is a 32-point shift away from the president of the United States when it comes to his key core political group. This is why he's in so much trouble. It's not just that college voters are against Trump now. It turns out that non-college voters, the ones that he built his presidential bid on, have waved adios, goodbye, see you later, Mr. Trump. We don't.
And again, he doesn't give a shit about this, right? He doesn't give a shit about this. He's happy where he's at. He knows he's got the people in place to continue robbing this country blind. The people that aren't going to stand up to him, the Mike Johnsons, the Marco Rubios, the Pete Hegseths, the list goes on and on and on and on, as far as sycophants that he's been able to install in high position governmental roles. To make sure that he can get these dirty deeds done that he's been planning again since his first administration, and how he learned, what roadblocks he actually ran into and how he could circumvent those roadblocks ultimately by putting his sycophants in place. But this is, again, leading up to, and just so we could get a little bit of a preview before we dive into this debacle that we've been continuously covering. This is from the Wall Street Journal. And this is, again, detailing the recent shift, I should say, or the recent news coming out of the Strait of Hormuz, what Iran is now continuously demanding. People are trying to make it sound like these are like new demands, but to me, they sound like the demands they've been making this entire time. And we'll go through a little bit here with this Wall Street Journal article. And it says, Trump thought opening the Strait of Hormuz was imminent. Iran had other plans. Tehran's new demands for major concessions come days after the White House had signaled a deal to clear the commercial passage was within reach. And this is how I was talking about. They were trying to jump on the backs of whatever talks, negotiations, and dealings were going on between Oman and Iran. And they were more than happy to utilize that as whatever victory that they were trying to go for. Meanwhile, this completely backfired. So in order for any of this to happen, Iran says, no, wait, this isn't something that we're just going to, we're not going to capitulate here. This is, we see that we still have the power. Like our nuclear weapon that you guys afforded us at the control of the Strait of Hormuz, like we still have that. And we've seen reports out there basically stating from the Iranian side that they're willing to wait out Donald Trump for the rest of his presidency. So for the remainder 2 or so years that he's got left, they're willing to wait him out. So they're willing to take whatever economic ramifications come to them, whatever, plight comes to their citizens in those 2 years. Like, we don't have 2 years that we could go through this, especially when we consider more and more action by the Houthis, the Red Sea becoming more and more, a fought over piece of land, a fought over waterway, the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, which we've been warning about since the beginning of this conflict, obviously coming more and more into play the longer that this fight goes on. But let's see if we can take a look at a couple of these paragraphs here, because it says, for weeks, and does it let me continue? No, what the hell? I thought I signed up. For crying out loud. They're supposed to give me one for free. I thought they were going to give me one for free. No. But anyway, this reporting's all over the place, so I'll read the first couple paragraphs. For weeks, President Trump had been laying the groundwork to declare victory in the Iran war should Tehran fully reopen the Strait of Hormuz, even floating the idea privately to senior aides that he's willing to walk away without a nuclear deal, U.S. officials said. Again, one of the main, if not the main fucking talking points from Donald Trump in the background. He's like, yeah, well, anything we can do to get the fuck out of here, even if we don't come away with the nuclear deal, like that's fine. Like the main talking point, because the Strait of Hormuz has become such a problem. He said, but that scaled back objective became more difficult when Iran insisted Saturday on its highest price yet for permitting the free flow of traffic in the waterway, seeking billions of dollars in U.S. payments, which they've always done, the removal of American troops from the region, which they've continued to ask for, and an end of the U.S. naval blockade, amongst other things. And again, I think I have the Strait of Hormuz. I think I had this backed up just in case the Wall Street Journal did that, which I knew they were going to do. I had the full article pulled up about, an hour before this broadcast started, but they just didn't want to let me see it. That's all. That's the problem. But yeah, this is the Hormuz letter on Twitter, just kind of with a few of the asks here. And it says, Iran's Supreme National Security Council declares Strait of Hormuz will not be opened until the U.S., quote unquote, corrects its behavior, rejecting Trump's claim that the temporary Oman route amounts to a reopening and setting out its conditions, including $300 billion in compensation per FARS. Iran, quote, will never compromise, whether in war or negotiations. And this is, again, just the list of things that Iran is sending over to the United States as far as demands. It says, 1, never threatening Iran or insulting its sacred values in any language. 2, ending once and for all any war and aggression against Iran and its allies in Lebanon, Palestine, Yemen, and Iraq. Lifting the naval blockade and withdrawing U.S. military forces, naval and air, from the vicinity of Iran. 4, fully compensating Iran for the damages caused by 2 aggressive and imposed wars, including a $300 billion fund. 5 is lifting the unjust and illegal sanctions against the Iranian people. 6, unconditionally releasing all the assets that have been blocked and stolen from the Iranian people. 7, allowing Iran to charge up to a 7% toll on every ship's cargo, which we detailed and talked about on just the other day's show. It was 7% from the Iranian side, 3% from the Omani side, as far as the talks were at that point in time. 8, allowing a ban on all U.S. and Israeli commercial military ships, plus other hostile countries, from transiting. And 9, allowing a violation toll of 20% on the ship's cargo if any of the above are violated. So, again, just a few of the things that we've consistently heard asked, or demanded, I should say, by the Iranian side. Meanwhile, the United States and Donald Trump try to tap dance on their heads every day, changing what they want to see happen, what the goals are, if they're going to annihilate the entire civilization. No, hold on, we can't, because we don't have the fucking, the missiles to do so. Like, it's gone back and forth 25 billion times on the U.S. side. Meanwhile, at least with these asks, at least with the list of demands, the data points that the Iranians have put over time and time again in either reports, the MOU, or different agreements that have gone out there, pretty consistent. So the fact that Scott Bessent was out there touting a deal going to be done in a day or two, Donald Trump was talking about another deal going to be done in a day or two, and this is what comes out of it. And the Iranians all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but again, are like, well, I don't know what you're talking about, because the things that we've demanded this whole time are still on the fucking table. We may be talking about and discussing with the Omanis how much they want to charge, ships going through their side. And we'll talk about how much we want to charge about ships going through our side. But that's us literally divvying up control over a waterway that nobody controlled beforehand, or at least nobody was laying mines in, or shooting drones into, or shooting fucking ballistic missiles into beforehand, I should say. And this goes on here because there's more reporting that'll bring us into the fact that Netanyahu had once again rejected a Trump-backed Gaza peace plan. This is 22 hours ago, reported by the Hormuz letter. Breaking: Israel is preparing for independent attacks on Iran without the United States, per Israeli Channel 13. This comes after Israel got informed that United States Chief of Staff General Dan Kane is, quote, looking for a way out, which we'll hear further reporting on in just a few minutes in the show, of the war with Iran, and does not believe another U.S. air campaign will be beneficial. So this is, again, the Israeli military, the Israeli government saying that we don't give a shit what the United States does, as we're, again, trying to combine the militaries even more closely within our governmental structure, within Congress, and what they're voting on as far as, what was it, 224 or 227, if I'm not mistaken. But it goes on here because it says the Israeli military has directly informed CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper that Israel does not need approval or support from the United States to wage war against Iran. Basically, this is what they did. This is a big... hold on. I think I actually have... There's a soundbite I think I have coming from Israel in this. Somehow somebody managed to record this. It's strange how they managed to record this, but I do believe I have this. Let me see. It was somewhere. Yeah, I think it was
go fuck yourself.
So that's basically a little portion of the recording from the Israeli military over to CENTCOM, Commander Admiral Brad Cooper on the other end of that line. Again, one more time there in case you're just joining. This is from the Israeli conversation to the United States. They basically said,
go fuck yourself.
That's basically what they said right there. And again, it goes on. It says Israel is preparing for a unilateral strike on Iran as it concludes the United States is no longer willing to finish the war on its terms. So again, showing, no longer having trust in, showing that they recognize the unwillingness of the United States and Donald Trump to do the bidding of Israel to continue this war to the benefit of Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu. And again, basically telling the United States
go fuck yourself.
I mean, how else can you read into that? I don't see how else you could possibly read into that. It says, Iran has previously threatened to strike Israel's Haifa oil refinery in Tel Aviv directly as soon as Israel strikes Iran again, with Iran having broken the air defense layer in Jordan and other Arab countries in daily attacks over the last few weeks and allowing it to strike Israel more effectively, and with Israel's own interceptor stocks now critically low, leaving it more vulnerable. And again, the more we continue to hear all of these fucking nations, including our own here in the United States, being critically low on stockpiles, whether it be with interceptors, whether it be with the TACMs, whether it be with the Tomahawks, it continues to show you that we weren't in the position to begin with to enact this war. Like how unbelievably ignorant and stupid it was to start a war like this when clearly we weren't ready. Clearly our stockpiles were not at the level that we needed them to be at in order to effectively say that, yes, we could start this war. And if something were to go wrong, if our plan A, B, and C don't work and this, turns into a prolonged war, we can continue to fight that. Like, you can't just say, okay, do we have enough for 2 days? Excuse me. Do we have enough to go in there and act like it's Venezuela or Maduro? Like, okay, as long as we have enough for that, and as long as everybody else, Israel, our Gulf partners, like all of these people we've heard for quite some time now worried about their interceptor stockpile. Ukraine now literally having no ability to shoot down the hypersonics and ballistic missiles coming in from Russia. Like, this is not the position, the time for you to be enacting these incredibly destabilizing wars that could last years if things didn't go the way that you originally planned or originally somehow in your deluded mind thought they were going to go. Getting us into, again, the lives of 18 service U.S. Men and women, the hundreds and hundreds that have been injured, in a lot of cases critically injured, having long-lasting injuries that they're going to have to deal with because they were used as pawns, political weapons, as by Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu. But the more you hear reporting like this, like everybody seems to be low on stockpiles now of interceptors. Not that this is new by any stretch of the imagination, but it continues to, reiterate how stupid and ignorant and ill-timed this war was, amongst other things that you could list and call this war. But, it goes on here. This is 17 hours ago, just days after Trump made a very angry phone call to Deputy Defense Secretary Steve Feinberg over extreme U.S. munition shortages, which we've done a hell of a lot of reporting on here to try to highlight. Following the Camp David clash with Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, which we also talked about, Feinberg has now issued a directive to U.S. defense firms, giving them no more than 21 days to submit plans to rapidly escalate the production and delivery of weapons that are now at, quote, zero due to the war. This is per the Washington Post. So again, they're saying it's a lie. Pete Hegseth is going on, in front of cameras, in front of microphones, talking to reporters. Donald Trump's going and doing interviews and saying that it's a complete and total lie. KKK Caroline Levitt saying that there's no truth to reporting that suggests that we're low on any of our stockpiles, interceptors or otherwise. But what's really going on behind the scenes is Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump are at each other's fucking throats because, Pete Hegseth sold Donald Trump, a bill of goods saying that this, again, was going to be a 24-hour campaign. We have plenty of weapons. Don't worry. They'd never closed the strait. All of the bullshit that everybody was feeding Donald Trump that wanted them to enact this. Meanwhile, we're actually dealing with critically low stockpiles. We're actually dealing with allies like Ukraine unable to shoot down Russian ballistic and hypersonic missiles because they have no more. And again, we're at a level where we're not very happy with what the fuck's going on with the U.S. military. We're looking at Israel. We're looking at the Gulf allies as far as their critically low stockpiles. And it drives it home more and more. But when you see this happening behind the scenes, like these memos going out by Feinberg, who is the underling of Pete Hegseth, saying, hey, listen, I don't want to hear this 2 years bullshit, which is, the time frame that a lot of military experts and people within the military itself have talked about as far as like replenishing the stockpiles. Like this isn't a, hey, snap your fingers, order it this week and Amazon's going to deliver it tomorrow as far as THAADs or Patriots or Tomahawks or Attackums, and the list goes on, I'm sure. But this is the rapid escalation that they need as far as production because of the situation that we're in right now. So this goes on to say, Feinberg states, quote, years-long development cycles are not acceptable. So reading between the lines and putting that into layman's terms, like I don't want to hear this 2-year bullshit. Basically, like we can't afford to wait 2 years to replenish these stockpiles. Like there needs to be a fucking plan, some sort of plan that we can come up with. We got to rob and steal, rob Peter to pay Paul. If we're going to take it from South Korea, if we're going to take it from, other geographical areas that we have bases in or defenses in, like that's what we need to do. But somebody's got to come up with a plan because we're at fucking, we're at red level here. We're about to go code black, as it were. Let's see. It also says, quote, we must dramatically accelerate our program schedules and expand our production capacity now due to the catastrophically low amount of munitions. The Pentagon last week secured Lockheed Martin a contract worth up to $58.6 billion for PAC-3 MSE production, and this Monday signed agreements with Northrop Grumman and Lockheed Martin to increase production of PAC-3 and THAAD missiles, the exact missiles now at 0 due to the war. So that's not a good sentence. The exact missiles now at 0 due to the war. Again, we talk about an organization with a $1 trillion or a $1.5 trillion budget. Like you should never have nothing of anything. You should have fucking too many of everything. If you got that type of budget, if you got that type of money to throw around, right? Not that they've been ever, able to account for any of that fucking money, considering how many of the audits they've failed as far as the Pentagon is concerned. But yeah, when you see this going out there, when you see how frantic they are in the memos that they're putting out that says giving them no more than 21 days to submit plans. So they got 3 weeks to submit plans to say, hey, what the fuck can we do here as far as trying to replenish these stockpiles? Because this war doesn't seem to be ending anytime soon. We got enemies all over the world that are looking at us like we're weak. We got to do something here. So, that kind of continues to drive home how real the problems are when you see reporting like that going on with this administration. And again, coincide with that coincided with the feud that we heard about at Camp David between Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump. This is 3 hours ago. Trump has privately admitted defeat and told senior aides he is willing to end the war in Iran without a nuclear deal if Iran fully opens the Strait of Hormuz, a retreat from his initial unconditional surrender demand per the Wall Street Journal. The Wall Street Journal. Trump has been laying the groundwork to declare. Oh, is this a little bit of that? It's not much more than we got through, I guess, but this is some of the Wall Street Journal's reporting that we couldn't see because they want to charge you for all of this pertinent information. But let's see, U.S. officials say Trump is desperately searching for an exit, with the only viable option being the Strait of Hormuz. Iran, however, has made even that impossible unless Trump surrenders to all of the demands which we already went through. This is from 4 minutes ago. A source close to Iran's Ghalibaf says Iran expects an Israeli surprise attack which we just talked about just a couple posts ago. Evidence indicates an increase in the enemy's readiness for a surprise attack amidst mediated negotiations with intermediaries. He adds, this comes after Israeli military last night said we are currently making preparations to start the war independently of the United States and informed the CENTCOM commander, Bradley Cooper, that Israel does not need approval or support from the U.S. for the war against Iran. Well, that means they damn sure don't need our money and they damn sure don't need our weapons. How about that? Iran has previously warned it will directly strike the Haifa oil refinery in Tel Aviv the moment Israel attacks again, and I'm sure that's amongst other attacks with other Gulf partners and allies in that area. But again, this is coming as this reporting is also coming out. This is from ABC News. Netanyahu rejects Board of Peace 15-point peace plan until Hamas is, quote-unquote, truly disarmed. And apparently this was a Trump-backed Gaza peace plan. But this shows you the willingness to see peace by these fucking madmen, by these delusional psychopaths like, by Donald Trump, Benjamin Netanyahu, and the rest of them. It says, Hamas agrees to disarmament in Gaza. President Donald Trump announced a plan for the complete disarmament of Hamas and all other armed groups in Gaza, but questions remain about when and how the deal will be implemented. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Sunday that Israel would reject the 15-point proposal for peace in Gaza, but that was put forward by President Donald Trump's Board of Peace. Trump previously announced an agreement for Hamas to disarm and for Israel Defense Forces to withdraw from the Gaza Strip as part of the U.S. brokered ceasefire signed last year. Quote, Israel rejects the 15-point document. Netanyahu said at the start of a cabinet meeting on Sunday, the IDF will not make any withdrawal until Hamas is truly disarmed and will continue to thwart threats against our forces and citizens. So again, the willingness or unwillingness, I should say, for these people to ever see peace in any way, shape, or form is right out there in the open once again. And this is coming here. Let me just throw this on the screen. This is Fox News reporting on the same subject. It says Netanyahu rejects Trump-backed Gaza peace plan. And this also talks about the recent Iranian demands as well, and the shaky footing, let's just say, that Donald Trump's on with this, because he's desperate to get out of it, but also desperate not to look like a fucking pussy, desperate not to look like a bitch in this situation. So we can't have both at the same time. That's just the position that he's put us in. You can't have your cake and eat it too, as far as this is concerned. So he's struggling right now to find some sort of off-ramp where he could also claim victory. But let's just see how Fox News is reporting on this. I think this is going to be Trey Yingst, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see here.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu publicly rejecting a Trump-backed 15-point peace plan while reaffirming that Hamas cannot have weapons. This as Iran is issuing new demands over the Strait of Hormuz. Fox News chief foreign correspondent Trey Yingst.
And they're not new demands. They're not new demands. These are the same demands that we've gone over time and time and time again on this show. With, again, even before the MOU, even with the initial reports that were coming out from whatever Iran was going to be asking for or demanding as far as the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz or the ending of the war in general, a lot of these things have been on there. Like, how many times have we talked about their demands of Israel to get the fuck out of Lebanon? The $300 billion fund that we guaranteed was going to be afforded to them at some point in time to get our asses out of hot water because of this ridiculous war that we got into. That's on there again. Like, these aren't new asks. So they're continuously trying to report this to make it seem like, oh, there's another shift by the Iranian regime. Here's another curveball thrown at Donald Trump by the IRGC, where they weren't, demanding this just the other day. Now all of a sudden they're demanding. Well, that's not true. This is very consistent demands this entire time, and Donald Trump's gotten a weaker and weaker and weaker position in this, and now all of a sudden these demands are starting to look good to him just in any way, shape, or form to try to end this fucking war that has been incredibly disastrous, and he and everybody in his administration and cabinet knows it.
Is live from Tel Aviv with more. Trey.
Yeah, hey, Peter, good morning. While the Middle East waits to see if an agreement can be reached to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, Iranian officials are issuing new demands. Iran's Supreme
National
Security Council released fresh demands over the weekend, calling on the United States to permanently end the war and compensate Iran for damages before the strait would reopen. This does come as Iran's foreign minister says even if a deal is reached, it doesn't necessarily mean the strait will stay open.
We have been discussing the temporary route, and we are very close to reaching a conclusion. Work is being carried out based on the maps of this route. Prepared by the armed forces, negotiations have taken place between the navies of the two countries, and the details are being finalized. I believe we will be able to conclude these negotiations very soon.
I'm sorry, did you hear how many countries he said there? Because he specifically stated the number, and it was 2 countries. And I believe that's Iran and Oman. Again, not even acknowledging the United States in that. And this, it continues to remind me of the World War II comparisons, again, where Hitler was feeling himself after France, decided to take control over the army himself. Again, what Donald Trump has seemingly done with the U.S. military, nobody really standing up to him and saying, no, that's a stupid idea. Like, he's pretty much got control as commander-in-chief to do as he pleases now, and has done so with the U.S. Armed Forces. So it's the similar position where after the Maduro raid, and now he was feeling himself, and it was such a success on his end, and the only person that died apparently, as I remember, was wasn't it the grandmother on the ground in Venezuela? Like, no planes were shot down, no helicopters were shot down. We captured Maduro. Like, he was feeling himself. He thought he was the supreme allied commander, right? He thought he was the head honcho, the head shit. Nobody knew more about military tactics. Nobody could tell him otherwise. Even if he had, ridiculous ideas, like, you had to follow those because, maybe there's a chance that they could work with his military genius. Like, that's how he was feeling himself. And the comparisons to, again, after France and heading into Poland and further into Barbarossa going into Russia, and then obviously the demise of the German military, the Nazis themselves. Like, it's so reminiscent of somebody that feels like nobody can tell them any differently. They feel like they have the best grasp over military tactics more than the generals and people that have done this for generations, and people that have thrown this idea away because of how dangerous it is and how destabilizing it could be and how it could go sideways real fucking quick. But no, Donald Trump knows best in this situation. Everybody had to bow down to his demands to start this war. His best friend and buddy, Benjamin Netanyahu, convinced him. Pete Hegseth convinced him that this was going to be something that was going to be fucking lickety split real quick, boss, just like Venezuela. And we've seen the complete and total opposite here.
Conversations about the Strait come as the U.S. naval blockade of Iranian ports remains in effect, costing the regime hundreds of millions of dollars each day. And according to U.S. Central Command, as of August 8th, CENTCOM redirected 53 commercial vessels, disabled 2, and boarded 2. The U.S. military has also permitted more than 30 ships to pass through the blockade for humanitarian aid.
Are they going to report on how many have been attacked recently? I think that's in one of these clips that I have coming up here about how many have been attacked recently going through the Straits. Pause. Sorry, that one was playing in the background. But yeah, I think it's one of the upcoming clips that I have talks about, and we talked about just the other day the amount of ships that were continuously being struck in the Strait of Hormuz by Iran. Obviously, the Houthis now, expanding this war, basically taking out, I think it was 56 or 59 people in one strike, if I'm not mistaken. So again, one of, if not the biggest strikes that we've seen in this war as far as their side is concerned. Let's see here. Let's go back to this one, though. Go back to the Fox. I think it was this one. Yeah.
Vice President J.D. Vance told Fox News the U.S. pressure on Iran will continue.
They're hurting in a big way. They want this thing to be over. The question is whether they're
again, is the opposite of what's being said, the opposite of what's being reported. We talked about, and I said at the opening of the show, like, there's reports out there that the Iranian side are more than happy, more than willing, and more than ready to wait out Donald Trump, basically stating to the end of his presidency. So for another however long he's, whatever the days are, the exact amount of days are that he's in office as president of the United States, they're more than willing to go that far, to wait that long, to see a resolution to this conflict, to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. And that's, again, I'll reiterate, much fucking longer than the West in general could go with the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, the closure of the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, continued bombs being sent at Gulf nations, U.S. bases in the region. Like, we can't put up with that for another fucking 2 years. We're talking about low stockpiles already. Like, of course we can't put up with this for another 2 years. And they know that. And they don't care about, what it costs their citizens. They don't care what it costs their population. They're more than willing to sacrifice however many they have to sacrifice to continue to keep the grasp, their hold, their death grip on the Strait of Hormuz, which is, again, the nuclear weapon of all nuclear weapons that Donald Trump and the United States afforded Iran as soon as they decided to sneak attack them while the Iranians were engaged in negotiations. Wherever those negotiations were actually going is another debate. But still, they were engaged in negotiations when we decided to sneak attack them with Israel.
Their system is able to give the things that are necessary for us to be happy, for us to feel like we've gotten what we need out of this particular engagement. That is still to be determined, but I do think that we made some progress over the last few days.
Ridiculous to think. Ridiculous to say. How could you possibly talk about things that you've received or gotten out of this conflict when the only legitimate problem that you're trying to solve right now is the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, which everybody continues to reiterate and knows was not closed. Say it with me, class. Was not closed before this fucking war started. You know what I mean? Iran did not have complete and total control over this. Nobody was charging tolls. There wasn't mines, bombs, and drones and missiles being lobbed into these fucking international waterways. It just wasn't happening. There was hundreds and hundreds of ships traversing these waterways every single day, where we've seen nowhere near that amount since this war was enacted. So to still continue as Donald Trump, the reporting of Donald Trump in the background saying, listen, I don't even care if we don't get any nuclear deal done. Like, I've continued to talk about the denuclearization. I've continued to talk about, Operation Midnight Hammer and how much, we were desperate to try to take out their capabilities for a nuclear weapon and how much they're desperate to use and get a nuclear weapon. But at this point in time, I'm ready to fucking tuck my tail between my legs and get the fuck out of this fight without a nuclear deal because, I'm looking like a twat. Like this is Donald Trump now in the background saying, like, even he in his demented, warped view of reality knows that he looks like an absolute asshole in this situation and he's not winning. So it's even gotten to the point where it's clear to a guy with no brain, right? That's how bad it's gotten. But JD Vance to be like, yeah, things are good. Things are progressing at this point in time. It's, I think it's good. It's good. It's asinine.
With talks ongoing, Iranian proxies remain active. The Yemen-based Houthis launched a new attack on Saudi oil refineries early this morning. The Houthis have launched several attacks in the region over the past week. And Peter, one correction for the congressman there. He spoke about a broader agreement, the Memorandum of Understanding between Iran and the United States. It's not Iran's supreme leader, the Ayatollah, who actually signs the document. It's Iran's president, Masoud Pezeshkian. Peter?
Be sure to...
So again, that's Fox News, Trey Yinks, and Peter Ducey. Having to report on this disastrous outcome, this disastrous war that Donald Trump has gotten us into, and how, again, it looks like Iran's going to get everything that they've been asking for, or this is going to continue for quite some time, and we're going to have to figure out how to put up with that. But, Donald Trump's top generals themselves don't want to see that happen. And this is brought out in new reporting here, detailed in this CNN clip. This is talking about here how Trump's top general is looking for an off-ramp, talking about the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, Raisin Kane, as Donald Trump calls him. So even he, again, recognizing the futility of just an all-out air campaign and how that's not going to get the job done, and how that we don't have the stockpiles and the readiness as far as the U.S. military to even continue on these futile fucking airstrikes that we've done time and time again with no benefit, seeing absolutely, no turn in the war, but we continue to expend these munitions, and then ultimately having to defend against our bases, expending the interceptor stockpile as well. But this is talking about, and I think they bring on a woman expert as far as this is concerned, talking about, what Dan Kane is actually looking for and what this means for the U.S. military and Donald Trump, I think specifically, as far as his own top generals not having confidence. And even months ago, I think it was about a month ago, and I think they showed this clip, if I'm not mistaken, where Dan Kane was in Congress and he recognized that it was not going to be, an air campaign. It was not going to just be an all-out bombing campaign that was ever going to win this fight. So it looks like, a month on now, he's, seeing that even more clearly. But let's just go through a couple minutes of this clip here and see what the expert that they bring on says as far as the reporting here.
Sources say President Trump's top general, Dan Kane, who is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, has privately made clear to top Trump advisors that he believes the United States needs to find an off-ramp from the Iran war. Over the last few weeks, our sources say that General Kane has met key cabinet officials, including the CIA director, the Secretary of State, and the vice president, warning that escalating this conflict could backfire and that the president's aerial campaign won't be enough to make Iran capitulate.
And that shows you how disheveled this government is. So at the same exact time that we heard reporting that Admiral Brad Cooper was bringing in an option to Donald Trump's table for a 2-week escalation period that had and consisted of bombing, the likes of which we hadn't even seen yet in this war, at the same time that we had the reporting on our low stockpiles, at the same time that we heard from Iran that if the United States were to attack again, they were absolutely going after the bases, they were absolutely going after the Gulf partners, who again were low on stockpiles themselves. At the same time that you had the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Dan Kane, running around behind the scenes trying to get everybody to understand what a futile situation this is and how we need some sort of off-ramp. Like, all of those things were happening at the same time in this government, within the military structure. Like, that's how unbelievably crazy this fucking government is being run. And it's again, I'm sorry to continue to bring this back to World War II, but the way in which that Hitler ran his government, it was very much disheveled, right? It was very much unorganized. Like, everybody thinks because they had paperwork on everything that it was very organized and calculated, and in a lot of ways it was. But as far as the hierarchy and the structure and who got the proximity of power to Hitler, like, they were all pitted against each other. They were all doing different things and trying to interpret what Hitler said in different ways and doing things behind the scenes to try to either get him gifts or to enact this policy, and hopefully they could bring that to him and it would gain them favor with them. Same thing going on here. Like, Pete Hegseth doing his own thing behind the scenes. Marco Rubio, J.D. Vance doesn't have any trust or belief in this war, but, is out there like meagerly towing the party line because he knows he has to, but also knows that he has to differentiate himself from the Trump administration if he ever wants to make a run in politics beyond this. So he's kind of in a shit position as well. But that's kind of the way that this like fucking podunk type of administration is being run. It's totally disorganized. Like, nothing is kind of like set in stone. Everybody's doing their own thing. There's no set plan. There's no coordination. It's very similar.
Something General Kane brought up during a hearing last month.
I think academically, as you look across the totality of history, air power's got limits, and we always have to be mindful of those.
Joining me tonight is Beth Sander.
That was a month ago. So that was him recognizing that, hey, like, unless we do something with boots on the ground, or unless there's something with like intermediaries and negotiations that are taking place alongside of these air campaigns, like, this is never going to work. We're just going to continue, spinning our wheels. We're going to continue to be stuck in the mud. We're going to expend our munitions. We're going to expend our interceptor stockpiles, and we're never going to get anywhere. And we don't have the capabilities. We were not set up. And again, I continue to go back. Even no military prowess whatsoever, no military strategist, not a military blogger whatsoever. We talk about these things a lot, but I don't consider myself one. But even when I saw the reports of the stockpiles, just of our interceptors, the Patriots and THAADs, pre-war levels, the first thing that stuck out to me was, wow, that seems like that's low. Right? That doesn't seem like they were at levels in which you'd be able to confidently enact a war somewhere, as we're trying to, or should be, helping and assisting our ally in Ukraine against their fight against Russia, as we're at the same time trying to fight against and mitigate against, whatever damages, China is doing right now and threatening to do in the future. We've talked about North Korea and them shooting off, like, all of these things that we have to mitigate against at once and should be prepared to mitigate against all at once. Like, that wasn't what was popping off on the screen. Like, the screen and showing the pre-war stock levels, the stockpiles, that's not what it said to me. So again, it just shows how stupid and ignorant and ridiculous the people that actually pressed the go button on this had to be to hit that button to enact this, to start this, to begin with. So it continues to drive home just how utterly deluded this entire administration is. Like, they just continue to be sniffing their own farts, believing their own propaganda, and whoever has to pay the price. In this case, it's our U.S. military servicemen and women. They don't really care. They're going to go out there and lie about it. They're going to lie about the amount of deaths. They're going to lie about the amount of injuries. They're going to lie about the stockpiles. They're going to lie about our goals. They're going to lie about the Strait of Hormuz. They're going to lie about the whole fucking thing they've lied about. So don't believe a word they have to say, nor do I believe that you guys are in the camp of believing anything they say anyway. So,
is the former deputy director of national intelligence. And Beth, when you hear this reporting about what General Kane is reportedly saying to Trump advisors about an off-ramp, What does that sound like to you?
I think it's, an accurate portrayal of the conundrum that they're in. And I think that the president actually probably feels that way some of the time too, but then he's ready to escalate. And I think what General Kane is really clearly articulating in this reporting is that there is no military solution alone to this problem. And therefore, given, all the expenditures of munitions, et cetera, we need to find a way out. But finding that way out is the big challenge.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they've been asking for creative solutions to punish Iran, as we reported earlier. But, our colleagues also say that Kane thinks this war has reached a crossroads. You believe that's another way to state, that the United States is at a dead end, basically.
Yeah. I mean, because you can't just keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, right? That's the definition of insanity, as they say. So I think that this is what the military folks are saying right now. And so crossroads, yeah, we have a crossroads in terms of a decision to make.
Again, I mean, it doesn't take much to recognize when you're hitting a certain target, when you're talking about Bandar Abbas and Sariq and, all of the other fucking different targets that we've heard hit time and time and time and time and time again by the United States Air Force, by the United States Navy, or whoever's taking part in these strikes. But nothing changes, right? It doesn't seem to be degrading, Iran's military capabilities. You're not reporting on how many Iranian service members were taken out in these strikes. It's literally just, okay, we hit this spot for the 27th time, for the 30th time. And then, the news continues and then we're in the same spot and it just nothing changes. You know what I mean? So like even the people expending these munitions, even the people shooting these fucking bombs and controlling the drones are like, what are we doing here? Like we've hit this 100 times already. They continue to just move or to rebuild or this doesn't seem to make any sense. So more and more people are talking in the background. That's why you've heard more and more people in the military speaking on condition of anonymity, obviously trying to, get themselves out of the backlash that would come definitely from the Trump administration had they put their names out there associated with whatever information that they were putting out.
But I think that it means that the military approach to this war has reached the point of no further progress can be made. And so I call that it's a dead end for this military approach. So we have to figure out how do we switch gears. And I think the primary problem there is that Iran is playing hardball and they seem to have a higher risk tolerance than we do.
Well, and obviously, they got bombed.
Again, which was drawn out in all the U.S. intelligence assessments. As soon as we put on the blockade, it started to come out that, maybe Iran does have the ability to withstand this blockade for a lot longer than we originally anticipated. Than we originally thought. And, we just don't have that long to go. We don't have the ability to hold the stock market, to hold the price of oil, as stable as it's been. And as artificial as I believe that is, I think if, the market was reacting truthfully and it wasn't just, okay, believing anything that Donald Trump or Scott Bessent said as far as a deal coming around the corner, we would be seeing far higher oil prices and far higher gas prices, right? Obviously not hoping for that, not wishing for that. And I feel like we're very fortunate thus far to not have seen it go to $150 a barrel, $200 a barrel, and whatever impact and effect that would have subsequently on gas prices. But I do think it's very artificial the way that the fluctuations that you've seen in the stock market manipulation, obviously in the oil prices, and how that goes up based on what Trump posts and what he says, and it's down and it's up, and if there's bombing, it goes up. I think it's very artificially held, right? And I know, there's a lot of people that have been pointing to the fact that, China has had a lot of part in that, in the fact that the oil hasn't gone to $150 and $200 a barrel because they stockpiled so much and they agreed not to do this, that, and the third that would, eventually make the prices increase astronomically. But the fact that these oil conglomerates that are heavily in the pocket of Donald Trump continue to listen to his bullshit, which again affects the stock market, affects gas prices, and it's kept at relatively, low based on what people were suspecting as far as where it was going to go and where it could possibly still go. like that's kind of another reason as to why you've seen that as well. But all right, let's see if we can dive on, because this is another way in which this is bad news for not only the United States, but for anybody that needs the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, that wants to see peace in the Middle East. This is Preston Stewart talking about how the war is expanding and how the Houthis are now launching strikes at different parts of the Yemeni government. But yeah, let's see if we can take a look at this. This is again Preston Stewart talking a little bit about the expansion of the war in Iran and the other areas, the other proxies that are involved as well. So I just wanted to go through a couple minutes of this. We have a double dose as well, because another one of his videos was detailing the updated Russian losses for July, I believe it was. I think we were talking about June being astronomical for Russia. July seems to be as bad as well. So let's see if we can take a look just real quick at this first one, detailing how the war in Iran seems to be expanding and not ending anytime soon. Let's see here.
So while all eyes are on the Strait of Hormuz, a new front may have just opened, threatening even more instability in the Middle East and decreasing the chances that the Iran war can be wrapped up anytime soon. Yesterday, the Houthis carried out an attack against the Yemeni government forces, sparking fears of a new regional escalation. Now, initial reports are that 58 government soldiers were killed, along with 11 civilians that were wounded after they were struck by Houthi drones.
58 government workers that were killed in this strike by the Houthis, again, on the Yemeni government officials there. So, again, a very substantial loss of life. A very clear escalatory move by the Houthis here. We've talked time and time again about their involvement, how much they would get involved, how much they'd try to control the Red Sea, the Bab el-Mandeb, if they would continue launching into Israel. Would they continue launching into different areas of people that they're feuding with as well? And I think I feel like we're getting our answer here.
Drones in Saudi Arabia. This marks one of the deadliest days of the ongoing civil war in over 4 years and warns of a possible return to full-scale war. Now, a quick note here.
And the only, correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, but the only strike that I am aware of that consisted of more casualties as a result of that strike was the Manab Girls' School, right? And I know there's probably been others that I'm not thinking of right now, but as far as just the total amount of destruction and death from a single strike, the only one that comes to my mind is the Manab Girls' School, which was roughly about 170 in that war crime perpetrated by the United States and more specifically Donald Trump.
These are an Iranian-backed militant group that has control over kind of the western portion of Yemen. It is not the internationally recognized government. They are a part of the so-called axis of resistance. So you have the IRGC in Iran, the Houthis in Yemen, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas and some of their affiliated groups in the West Bank and Gaza, and then in Iraq and Syria, Shiite militias loyal to the IRGC. And that's going to be important here because we also have new reports that some of those militias might be teaming up with the Houthis to attack Saudi Arabia. We'll see, but you can kind of see a couple different directions this may spiral here in the near term. Now, the Houthis in recent days have really ramped up operations. So back on July 20th, about 2 weeks ago, they announced a blockade of Saudi Arabia, and people kind of scoffed at it and thought it was just propaganda. But either that day or the day after, they launched attacks against a number of Saudi ships, and by all metrics, that blockade is in effect. It's significantly reduced transit through the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. In fact, let's start with a look at the map here.
Roger, as this thing started to prolong, right, as this thing started to drag on, that was becoming more and more of a factor. And anybody that's consistently watched this show, or at least watched this show since the beginning of this Iran conflict, has heard us state time and time again, warn time and time again about, if you thought the closure of the Strait of Hormuz was bad, well, wait until the Bab el-Mandeb gets shut down as well. So, at the same time, it's something that we've talked about time and time again, and it looks like, again, the Houthis are getting more active instead of less active. It seems like this has more ways to spiral out of control than it does to, more off than off ramps are presented to get us out of this, this disastrous war.
The regional.
Yeah, that's not even to mention, even if the United States, let's just say hypothetically, there is some deal done The Strait of Hormuz is opened. The United States ends its military campaign against Iran. What's to say that the rest of these bad actors, the rest of these proxies and stuff that have been activated, don't continue their fight? Don't see that they're gaining ground, or see that they could take over power. If it's the Houthis taking over maybe the other half of Yemen, I believe they control the southern half, if I'm not mistaken, of Yemen. What if they, like they're trying to do now, when you launch an attack on government officials that takes out almost 60 of them and wounds, I think, another 12 or so civilians in the area? Like, that's a serious attack. Like, that means serious things. That's showing that you mean business, and that's not something that's just going to be a one-time thing. So, like, it seems to be escalating and widening, more than Donald Trump and Scott Bessent would have you believe there's a deal to be done to end this whole thing.
Will be important. So we've got live UA map here. Yemen is the only country with some markings on it here because we're looking at the Yemen-focused map. The red territory here is Houthi-controlled territory. To give you an idea, it is not.
So my apologies. So the western portion of Yemen, not the southern. My apologies. So the Houthis control the western, which would make sense. Obviously, the closer area to the Bab el-Mandeb and to the Red Sea. So my apologies geographically.
All of Yemen, not by a long shot. However, significant population density in this area compared to the rest of the country. The power that the Houthis have, and they've exercised multiple times in recent years, is this very narrow waterway known as the Bab el-Mandeb Strait that connects the Red Sea to the Gulf of Aden down here. So they've shut this down before. They've threatened to attack ships moving through it before. They're right back at that now, and it's been a concern because if you go just a little bit further north, you run into the Strait of Hormuz with the Persian Gulf, and this is the waterway that Iran right now has control over. I know we hear every day that the U.S. has control, but based off of the ships moving through, we don't. They do. Or at the very least, it's not a safe passageway to go through. How about that? So one of the concerns is that the Houthis would join the fight and lock down this waterway. On July 20th, they did just that. So in turning to recent operations, again, a spike here in recent days. On August 4th, the Houthis targeted the Saudi Najran airport using a drone, and then an Indian vessel was hit by a USV, unmanned surface vessel, and sunk. That one we actually have verification of. I'll put a warning up here from the UK MTO confirming that vessel was hit and sunk, a small one, all things considered. Then on August 5th, we got confirmation that the Saudi oil tanker Wafa was targeted in the northern Red Sea using a number of ballistic missiles. We don't know if it was hit or the damage it sustained, anything like that, because according to Windward AI, the organization that kind of tracks movement of ships throughout the region, throughout the world,
I feel bad that I'm covering
that ship has been dark since the blockade went into effect. Then yesterday, August 6th, we saw kind of a spark of operations where the Houthis put out some footage actually as well that I'll play here. They said on August 6th, this is a direct statement from the Houthi spokesperson, quote, "Our armed forces carried out a large-scale and qualitative military operation targeting Saudi enemy deployments in the areas of Al-Rawiq, Al-Ubra, and Al-Thana, as well as other camps belonging to what is called the 1st and 3rd Emergency Brigades, using a large number of ballistic missiles and drones. The result of the operations were hundreds of Saudi mercenaries killed and injured. A large number of Saudi enemy camps, deployment, storage facilities, and weapons area in the east of the countries were destroyed and burned, and a large number of military vehicles present in the targeted camps were destroyed."
So again, a lot of what's not being talked about by the U.S. government, a lot of this is as a consequence of obviously the actions of the United States government to enact this war. Something that they're not talking about, the instability seen throughout the region stemming from the war that they started, and obviously the fact that we seem to be nowhere near a deal based upon the continued demands by the Iranian side, and obviously the activation of their proxies. And I don't think you'd really call the Houthis, I know they're often listed as proxies, but I do believe they have the same religious affiliation, the same religious background, if I'm not mistaken, as the Iranians. Correct me in the chat if I'm wrong on that one. I don't think they're the same as the other proxies that maybe aligned militarily, but not as much as far as religiously. And again, if I'm wrong on any of that, feel free to correct me in the chat. I just feel like that's the understanding that I have.
Initial report was something like 10 to 17 possibly killed. The Times of Israel has since updated, saying that there are reports of at least 58 government troops, so Yemeni government forces, that were killed in drone and missile attacks, while 11
says senior Saudi cites intel showing Houthis and Iraqi militias under IRGC supervision could soon launch coordinated attack on Saudi civilian energy infrastructure and ports. Again, showing the the readiness of these groups to expand this war, to escalate this war, when you have Donald Trump and Scott Bessent talking about, a peace deal is going to be done any second now. That's not what we're seeing in reality. That's not what we're seeing on the ground, which is why we continue to report on things just like this, to make sure that everybody's up to speed and aware and on the same page as to the likelihood, so you don't have any false hopes. I don't think anybody, watching this show regularly or consistently would have any false hopes or believe any of the bullshit coming from the Pentagon, CENTCOM, Pete Hegseth, Donald Trump, Marco Rubio, Scott Bessent, any of them. But just in case there's people watching in the background that stumbled upon this show that may not engage in the chat, but may be watching, listening in the, like I said, in the background, that may have alternative beliefs. That's why we continue to reiterate, this is what's really going on the ground. This is what's really been kind of unleashed in the Middle East, as far as, this war, this destabilizing war that we continue to call it. This is the destabilization that you continue to see in the region.
Civilians were then wounded inside of Saudi Arabia. Now, we're recording this the morning of August 7th, and there are already reports that there may be additional land attacks in portions of Yemen being carried out by the Houthis today. The Houthis put out a statement, prepare for an announcement, and we're kind of getting some rumors circulating that there is another attack, maybe very similar to the one that was carried out yesterday.
And there have been ships struck in the Strait of Hormuz. There have been ships struck, trying to traverse the Bab el-Mandeb. And obviously there have been more attacks just like that one as well. I don't know if they were as, devastating as far as the loss of life, but, the attacks have continued. But all right, let's see if we can dive into a little bit of the professor's updates here. And then we have another Preston video talking about the losses, the recent updates and losses on the Russian side, which we continue to detail as well. But let me throw this on your screen real quick. This is from Professor Gerds. This is Ukraine destroyed a lot of military targets last night, so a very active night for the Ukrainian military. Again, we try to, dive, duck, and dodge to, through all aspects of this, the good, bad, the ugly. So again, we report on the increased activity by the Ukrainians as far as targets that they've gone under. At the same time, we continue to talk about the very serious and dangerous situation they're facing in their major cities, based upon the shortages of the interceptor stockpiles and their inability to shoot down hypersonic and ballistic missiles coming in from the Russians. At the same time, we talk about the effective strikes and counterattacks on the front line. At the same time, we talk about, the precarious position in and around the fortress belt, in which the Russians are trying to, again, do their best to flank, to skirt around the fortress belt, and how, again, that it could be and could develop into a very serious situation. So we try to, again, keep everybody, their feet on the ground, 10 toes down in the sand, as it were, based in reality, so that we're not trying to, or doing any propagandizing to the people. So, all right, let's get into this one. A very active and productive night by the Ukrainians. So let's see what they struck. Again, Professor does a very good job of compiling the different reports out there, whether it be from verified people on Twitter or news agencies. So we utilize his videos a lot to just kind of compile and compress a lot of this information. So shout out to him for putting these videos together so that we could utilize them afterwards. So hit that like button. My name is Brian. This is the Blunt Politics Podcast. Again, we try to do as much and keep everybody as informed and involved in what's going on with Ukraine as humanly possible. And like I said, we utilize a lot of professors' videos, Preston Stewart, Jake Bro, Sukakamis, a lot of these videos that we try to, The Sun, a lot of videos. So just anything that we can get our hands on to get us up to speed, up to date, and keep us based in reality as well. So, all right, let's take a look. Slava Ukraine, Heroyam Slava. Hit that like button if you could, if you enjoy what you're watching, if you like what you're seeing, if you enjoy the community that's been built around this podcast, then hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. It's free to do so. It's free to share it as well. So, and again, clip any moment of this show that you want. If you find a funny moment, you find in, a very informative moment of the show, piece of the show, feel free to clip it. Feel free to put it out there on your socials. Tag me, tag the channel, and I'll be sure to repost it if I see it. So, all right, let's see what the professor's got for us as far as the productive night for the Ukrainians as far as strikes against Russia. You can see behind him, again, just the And I don't know if that's, coming from last night, but just the amount of activity coming out of Ukraine, going into different portions of Russia proper, and obviously the different occupied areas of Ukraine as well. So, all right, let's dive into it.
Day, August 9th, 2026. It was a productive night for Ukrainian strikes. Those aren't my words. Those are the words of Anton Doroshenko as he cataloged all the military strikes on Russia. I'll show you what happened last night. There were no wild berries or oil refineries, but a lot of strikes on military targets. Here we go. 310 drones were reported going out from Ukraine into Russia. Now, this is from the Moscow Times. Russia Defense Ministry said that it destroyed more than 150 Ukrainian drones over a European part of the country, which is where most of the drones went. So there's a big gap between 150 and 310. Right? So we'll see how what all was hit. Fires were seen in Russia's Belgorod amid reported Ukrainian drone attack. That's from the Kyiv Post. Here we also see a series of powerful explosions being reported in Belgorod. Footage of a Ukrainian Air Force MiG-29 Fulcrum dropping the Russian Russian 14K-33 road bridge at Urazovo using a pair of French-supplied AASM guided bombs. The bridge, 25 kilometers behind the front, was destroyed last month as part of a campaign to degrade Russian supply lines. And then we see a second bridge just a few kilometers up the river was also destroyed the same day, but that's just coming out. Ukraine's general staff confirms the air defense hunt an S-400 position. These are expensive weapons, by the way, near Galendzsk, a Pantsir in Yetsk, and a Tur in Rostov Oblast were hit. Kosta and Poldot radar were also struck in Rostov Oblast, plus Russian logistics depot in occupied Crimea.
I mean, already you can just see the variety of targets that they're going after, whether it's air defense systems, whether it's resupply vehicles. Again, maybe no wild berries that were hit in this 24-hour period, but obviously the wild berries campaign that we've seen, the oil refineries that have consistently been struck. You can just the list of targets that are gone after every single night, down into Crimea, down into the Black Sea, the Sea of Azov, all of these things consistently on a nightly basis being targeted here. And we're just kind of trying to run down as many of them as possible to keep everybody up to speed.
That's only a partial cataloging of those things. According to Magyar's latest update,
and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's Magyar's birthday. Head of the Unmanned Systems Forces, Robert Brovdy. Let me see here. I thought I saw that, if I'm not mistaken. Magyar 414. Let me throw this on your screen. If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, here you go. Today, Commander of the Unmanned Systems Forces, Robert Magyar Brovdy, celebrates his birthday. We value your leadership, your ability to make hard calls, and your steadiness when others especially need to feel confident and strong. We see how completely you have given yourself to Ukraine's defense. You're among the first to recognize the wedding drone as a key weapon in this war, and you know where the main effort must go. When we honor your dedication, your integrity, your poetry, and your humanity, thank you for bringing together a flock of birds who will fight alongside you for Ukraine as long as it takes. We wish you robust health, wisdom, and fucking incredible drive. May the sharp word take flight when you need it, and may the numbers on the scoreboard keep climbing. Happy birthday, Commander. We are honored to serve with you. And again, a little photo there of Robert Brovdy, the head of the Unmanned Systems Forces of Ukraine. So I thought that's what I saw earlier. I just popped into my head there. But all right, let's get back into this.
Huge white plume rising over Galendzsk. Yesterday came from an S-400 air defense position destroyed by the 413th raid. There were a lot of things struck last night. This, by the way, is what an S-400 looks like. The S-400 system is brutal. It's one of the more advanced missile systems that they have. And so taking this out, this is a very expensive missile system as well. S-400 missile system that launched missiles against Ukraine the previous day. So it's no longer there. So Anton Doroshenko says a very productive night for Ukraine.
Let me see. I'm curious what the singular cost is of the, let me throw this on your screen. S-400 costs real quick. Russian S-400 missile system battery costs about $500 million for domestic use, while export prices range from $1 billion to $1.25 billion. Individual interceptor missiles cost between $300,000 and $2 million each, depending on the specific missile variant. So we continue to talk about the cost associated with this war for Russia, the equipment that they've lost. So when we talk about the S-400s, we hear that, as far as what the Ukrainians were targeting, you can now, fully understand and comprehend what type of cost is associated with the loss of one of those, and especially, the fact that they're not, able to replace these or replenish these quickly as well is another aspect of that. So, all right, let's see what other struck with it. A very productive night for Ukraine's unmanned systems forces. They hit an S-400, as we were just talking about, a Tor missile system in the Pudovyov, Rostov region, a Pantsir S-1 missile system in the Krasnodar region, a Podlet K-1 radar in the Rostov region, a Kosta 2E2 radar also in the Rostov region, and an oil tanker and 2 dry cargo vessels in the Black Sea as well. So again, the list just continues to grow as far as the targets that they're going after successfully, I might add. So let's just see what else.
Reported as footage from a burning S-400 position in Krasnodar. That plume of smoke that you'll see in the background. Yeah, that plume of smoke, that's the S-400. So, yeah. Okay, so that's what's going on last night. Excuse me. That's what's going on last night. Here we see last week, Ukraine drones struck the Russians' 133rd Logistics Brigade garrison in eastern Crimea, but this was just coming out last night to show that, yeah, that is what it was looking like.
The attack destroyed multiple storage buildings at a base, a key depot supporting the Russian land units fighting in southern Ukraine. So again, a lot of these stuff, not a lot, but some of these things tend to trickle out later on because of, operational security, confirmation, and stuff like that as well. Let's see here. This is from the General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces. Destroyed or suppressed 179, enemy targets. So let's see if that's incoming. Let me see.
179 enemy targets out of 219. That's an 81.7% shoot down rate. A Russian missile attack damages residential buildings in Odessa, injuring at least 6. Odessa seemed to be the primary target last night. Russia struck Odessa with 11 missiles and
I think if I'm not mistaken, I think the death toll rose above that. Let me see. Odessa, a Russian attack. I could be wrong. I could be getting two of these mixed up. Let's see here. The Russian forces launched a massive combined missile and drone attack on Odessa and its surrounding port region on August 9, 2026. The strikes damaged port infrastructure, industrial and energy facilities, residential areas, injuring at least 8 people and causing widespread power outages. Let me see here. I thought I saw more than that, but I could be wrong, like I said. Don't see anything else. Odessa strikes 22. Russian forces kill several in Ukraine. Let's see. This is from Al Jazeera. Russian forces kill several in Ukraine, launch brutal attack in Odessa. President Volodymyr Zelensky accuses Moscow of harming global food security amid a spat of attacks in Odessa's port. Let's see if they give an accounting here. It says, overnight Russian attack in an apartment building has killed 2 people in Ukraine's northeastern city of Kharkiv, as Moscow also keeps up its attack on Ukrainian energy infrastructure. Russian forces hit a high-rise in Kharkiv. At least 21 people were wounded. Let's see if this talks about the Odessa one. No. Attacks on Odessa. Moscow also took aim at the southwestern region of Odessa, a frequent site of deadly attacks. Russian forces launched a barrage of ballistic missiles, anti-ship and anti-radar missiles as well overnight, as well as more than 200 Shahed drones. Missile and drone attacks were recorded at 22 locations, and so were the remnants of downed missiles at 6 sites. Zelensky said Zelensky said the attacks targeted Odessa's energy sector and repair work underway to restore power. At least 8 people were injured at residential buildings, and the power sustained damage. Maybe it was the word injured that I saw. No, it says attacks in the port killed 28 people in the first 3 weeks of July alone, Governor Oleg Kuiper previously said. So maybe that was the reporting that I saw. So in the first 3 weeks of July, attacks on that port have killed 28 people. So maybe that was the reporting that was talking about. But yeah, as far as, Russian attacks inside of Ukraine as well. But let's dive back into this, see if there was any other attacks by the Ukrainian military to speak of. says Russia launched a massive combined strike on Odessa, Ukraine's Black Sea port, overnight August 9th, firing 11 missiles, most on a ballistic path, up to 100 drones, including jet-powered Banderol strike drones. Ukrainian air defenses shot down 72% of the drones, 5 of 6 Banderols and 1 missile, and forced 3 more missiles off course, the Air Force says. So again, better than nothing, but obviously we need to see more as far as percentage-wise. Missiles being able to shot down, drones being able to shot down, clearly. This says Russian forces launched a missile strike in Odessa using an Iskander-M, an Onyx, and a KH-31P missile, leaving 8 people injured. The attack sparked fires in residential areas and damaged energy infrastructure, leaving several districts of the city without power. And I think he's got some footage of that.
8 people injured. The attack sparked fires in residential areas, damaged energy infrastructure, leaving several districts of the city without power. Russia also struck Kharkiv, apartment tower, floors 7 to 10 gone, 2 dead, a child among the wounded. Morning missile tore out the floors of 7 to 10 of a residential high-rise in the city's Saltvika district, killing men aged 50 and 66 and wounding at least 21 people, including a 5-year-old boy. The number of injured in Kharkiv strike rises to 23 as rescue workers search for the survivors. In 5 days, Russia attacked Ukrainian railways 41 times. 6 railway workers and 8 civilians have been killed in those 41 strikes. So
and those are the reports that we were talking about just the other day. And, having just traveled for, a lot of hours on Ukrainian railways, it's a scary thought. It's a scary thought to think that, even on the train out of Kyiv, or even on the train out of Kharkiv or Sloviansk or Kramatorsk or Konstantinivka, wherever that we're talking about, like, you're still, you're not safe until you're, well a ways from the country. And even then, as we saw the missile land in Poland, even then, once you're out of the country, you're still seemingly not in, not in safety. Let me see if there's anything else as far as
they're doing.
Concerned.
So sometimes you might get the impression, and I'm not trying to do that it's only one side.
I think he goes over some of the Russian losses and the total for the. Yeah, I think it was right here. We'll just play this. This will give us a good intro, a good segue into Preston Stewart's video detailing the Russian losses incoming from the month of July, and a little bit more. I think he gives some more updates on what's going on in Ukraine as well. But let's check in here.
It's just it's mind-boggling that the world is not more upset about this. Battlefield update, 1,130 Russians off the battlefield. 2 tanks, 4 armored fighting vehicles, 41 artillery systems, 358 vehicles and fuel tanks, 1,642 UAVs. The unmanned ground vehicles at 9 gets an honorable mention as well, because that's on the higher side for those. Across direction, 11 attacks. What you'll notice about the attacks last night is that it's the highest ones, which I'm highlighting, the highest ones are still low. Across 11 in Konstantinivka, Hulipole direction, 8. Sloviansk 8. I mean, it's not
again.
Like
we tend to breeze by when he goes through some of these numbers that you just saw for the Russian losses. So when you take a look at 4 multiple launch rocket systems being lost by the Russians, it doesn't have the same meaning anymore. But once you again put a number associated, a cost associated with each one of these that they're losing, so it's a single launcher for Russia's newest 300 millimeter Sarma multiple launch rocket system (MLRS) costs approximately 155 million rubles. Right, so about 1.9 million USD, while accompanying transport loading vehicles cost around 64 million rubles, about 800,000 USD. So every time one of these is taken out, depending on the variant, depending on which type it is, we're talking about a substantial chunk of Russian rubles that are being lost with every single one of these. So, when we talk about the tanks and we talk about the armored fighting vehicles and artillery systems, 41 artillery systems alone, it's an astronomical cost associated with that as far as losses and not being able to recoup those losses, to resupply the front, in any period of time that would be beneficial to them. But let me just see here. That's probably a good segue into this video here. Throw this on the screen. This is from Preston Stewart. Once again, like I said, this is just detailing the Russian losses. It says Russia just lost more soldiers than they were able to recruit. Again, So consistently seeing the amount of dead and wounded on the Russian side, like an uptick because of the amount that the Ukrainians are making them pay for every square inch of soil that they try to take. Again, the increase in drone activity, the increase in effectiveness of the drone activity, the missile activity as well. Again, this is what you were expecting, or what we were expecting to see as far as Russian losses were concerned. But here's Preston Stewart just to detail a little bit about the Russian losses, and I think some other updates as far as this war is concerned as well. So let's dive into this.
Nearly 31,000 Russian soldiers were killed or seriously wounded in July, marking the 5th month this year where Russia lost more men than they were able to recruit. And every one of these strikes verified on video. Now, those losses are adding up and have led to a change in U.S. intelligence assessment that now believes that because of the mounting challenges in Ukraine, Putin may try to directly test NATO in the near future.
I told you.
Russian hybrid warfare is already underway.
What did we report? I know it was by the Sun, so, take it with a grain of salt from when we reported it. But, we talked about this. Was it yesterday's show? The day before? I forget. Couldn't have been yesterday's show because we didn't have one. So that puts the, puts a damper on that thought. But yeah, we talked about this in a recent show about, the threats that the intelligence agencies, and it wasn't these intelligence agencies that you wouldn't believe. It was U.S. intelligence that was trying to come out and warn people that the likelihood, at least, of Putin trying to test NATO. And again, this doesn't have to be a kinetic attack. This doesn't have to be, a missile or a drone. It could very much be a cyber warfare attack. We know that Russia's heavily involved in the cyber aspect as far as warfare is concerned as well. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, a strategic strike on a NATO country, but they're trying to test the coalition, clearly at a point where a lot of people are crying poor mouth as far as stockpiles and interceptors are concerned. So, you can see the timeline and the time frame and how the bad actors we continue to talk about around the world would we be willing to exploit this type of situation. And again, at least the reporting out there is suggesting that the likelihood is going up that Russia and Putin may try to test NATO. This is the Wall Street Journal article I think we brought up the other day, where it says U.S. intel finds Putin could test NATO's resolved with limited incursion. New assessment updates past forecast. The Russia's leader wouldn't provoke the alliance during the Ukraine war, but the things have changed recently. So let's see if he does any more talking about this.
And just this week, an explosive-laden drone was found next to a Ukrainian plane parked at a German airport in what local officials there referred to as an attempted act of Russian terrorism against the NATO state. That's a big deal. Now, starting with the Russian losses in July, something I want to stress is every single one of these Russian soldiers raised their hands and volunteered to fight. I feel like that's often overlooked. There is not a draft in Russia right now. There is not forced mobilization in Russia right now. There's conversation that might come up before too long because of the continued losses and because of the challenges of continuing to get this many volunteers. But when you see a Russian soldier in the drone feed of a Ukrainian drone pilot, that is a volunteer. They raise their hand for the cause, for their country, or in most cases, for the money. Now, one of the areas that they're mostly recruiting from at this point are some of the poor and rural locations, certainly outside of Moscow, but they're starting to run into issues there as well. It's not that they're running out of manpower or they're running out of people. They're running out of people that are willing to volunteer is the issue. So we're seeing month after month, increasing challenges across the Russian military, increasing rates, increasing bonuses, increasing benefits to try to avoid mobilization and continue with what right now is fighting Ukraine is an all volunteer force. So keep that in mind. Now, Robert Magyar, the commander of the Unmanned Systems Forces, released some stats a few days ago where he said the balance of enemy manpower for July and January through July as a whole remained negative. During July, drones operated by the Defense Forces of Ukraine eliminated or wounded 30,957 enemy personnel, while the enemy replenished its forces with 29,800 personnel. They rolled through a series of stats here to show what those numbers looked like starting in December, moving to today. And what that looks like is January, February, March, April, and July. Ukraine says that they're able to eliminate more Russian soldiers killed or seriously wounded, so taken out of the fight, than Russia was able to recruit. All in all, December through July, the Ukrainian Unmanned Systems Forces say Russia brought in 245,000 recruits, and Ukrainian drones, the Ukrainian military, took off the battlefield 253,000 Russian soldiers. So that is a net balance of minus 8,299. They say these figures show that although we have managed for 8 months to prevent the enemy grouping from growing, it is still little more than a hamster wheel. a zero-sum situation and a clear sign of a war of attrition. And that's what most assessments are pointing to right now. When you look at the size of the Russian military and that they're still pulling in about 30,000 soldiers per month, 8,000 down over 8 months is honestly sustainable for the Russian military.
And again, that just continuously proves the point that everybody has brought up about the Russian military, about their willingness and lack of care for their soldiers, or what they call soldiers on that side, and just the ability they have and the willingness they have to just continue feeding this meat grinder with as many troops, or what they consider troops, as humanly possible. Like that's kind of their backbone right now. That's their crutch that they're leaning on, is their numbers, as they have in multiple wars that we could talk about throughout history, just trying to overwhelm what is seemingly a maybe better equipped force, or a better trained force, but just out of sheer numbers alone, kind of get overrun at some point in time. You start, the supply gets cut off, and next thing you know, you're just kind of overwhelmed and surrounded by the amount of tank after tank after tank, and soldier after soldier after soldier, and that's continuously what we've seen there. So the amount of soldiers that they're able to take out as far as the Ukrainians is substantial, but if you look at the net on that, I think it was only about 8,300. So you can see what they were calling this hamster wheel of, no matter how many Russian soldiers that they take out in a month, like, the Russians are more than ready, more than able, at least up until this point, to throw in, if not that many, close to that many. So like you just saw on that graphic that he just pulled up here, in the months of December, 33,000 were taken out, or 33,000 went into the military. They were able to take out 34,500. January, 22,000 were able to be recruited. They took out 30,000. 25,000 in February, able to take out 23,000. So then if you add in the months that they weren't able to do that, the net on the bottom, it says their current negative balance minus 8,299, even calling it unsatisfactory as far as their standards, but was hard won. So not to say that they didn't go through a lot, but they'd like to see the amount of forces that they're able to take off the battlefield, or at least take off the battlefield that aren't able to be replenished by the Russians. You'd like to see that ratio go up a lot more than just the 8,299 that is detailed in this specific report here.
Look at the size.
Let me see. I'll go ahead just a little bit. I know we're a little ahead of this.
At the front getting struck. We know the Ukrainian strikes against refineries, against the wild berries facilities, and the middle strike campaign is continuing as well. We just got some pretty interesting footage overnight showing, actually, I think the most interesting piece here, targeting Russian ships in the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov, was the Russian surface-to-air missile systems missing the Ukrainian drone. One of these looks like they missed 3 times. So they say this was the Ukrainian unmanned systems force.
Oh, shit. You can even see where it's launched. That's pretty crazy, actually. So let me play that one more time. You can actually see the first missile. I don't know if you can see where it's launched, but you can see it pass right by the Ukrainian drone. And then the second one, where you can see the red circle popped up, you can actually see where it's launched in its whole flight. In a, from what Preston said, it looks like that one misses as well. But pretty cool footage. I'll actually get out of your way so you can have a clear picture at it.
The wild berries facilities and the middle strike campaign is continuing as well. We just got some pretty interesting footage overnight showing, actually, I think the most interesting.
So you can see where it's
targeting
right
Russian
here.
ships
So
in
the
Black Sea and the Sea of Azov. Was the Russian surface-to-air missile systems missing the Ukrainian drone?
Then you can see
One
in this area here again.
3 times.
So you can see the actual launch
this was the
there.
Ukrainian Unmanned Systems Forces said during the period of August 1st through 8th, operators of the Magyar Birds, the 20th K2 Brigade, and the 413th Raid Regiment struck another 12 vessels belonging to the Russian Shadow Fleet in the Black and Azov Seas.
One more?
In total, since the beginning of this operation from July 6th to August 8th, they've successfully targeted 218 vessels. Of these, 134 were in the Sea of Azov, 84 in the Black Sea. Now, an interesting note there is we've definitely seen a reduction in recent days. Again, if you're talking about 218 struck over the course of a month, but just 12 struck in the first 8 days of August, that's definitely a decline in a focus of that area of operations. We'll see what that looks like as we get into August, but there's a possibility there that they do ramp that back up if these targets continue to present themselves on the open water.
And again, that may just be, the main focus bouncing around as it does typically in a war with the military, right? You see that you're having an impact, or you see that you've done, whatever goal, you achieved the goal that you were trying to obtain at that point in time. And then you try to switch or use whatever resources in a different campaign going after, I don't know, maybe now they've switched to try to figure out how to better defend against the Russian ballistic and hypersonic missile attacks. Maybe they've, started to focus on, and they're trying to, refocus on some of the wild berries facilities, or going after the oil refineries again, whether it's resupply down in Crimea. Like, it's kind of a shift of focus that you see time and time again. So maybe it's the lack of Russia putting ships into this area of operation that you've seen kind of the downturn you'll see in activity, I guess. Or if it's just the natural rotation that you see sometimes in things that you're focused on in these wars.
The major issue kind of coming out of all of this is the conversation about whether or not Putin will use this opportunity to try to test the NATO alliance. And I genuinely think there's an argument in both directions. The one that is being presented right now in the Wall Street Journal is that because Putin is in a tough place, he is more likely to test NATO because he needs a win on the home front. I think that there is just as much of a case to be made that Putin is in such a tough spot, he cannot afford to test NATO. I think it's a roll of the dice. It could go either way.
Right, which is why I think people are talking about how it's the likelihood and not the inevitability of an attack. It's just the chances of that, the likelihood have gone up based upon the low levels and stockpiles of the United States. Them in Ukraine facing similar problems. The Russians' ability and willingness to test the NATO alliance from time to time, whether it be with cyber attacks. Preston just talked about the attack in Germany of the bomb left next to the Ukrainian plane. Different ways in which that they tried to test the relationship, test the strength, test the resolve, see where it's at. That way they know how far they can ultimately push. So I'm just saying the likelihood has gone up with all of the recent developments, again, with the United States, with Ukraine, with the geopolitical situation as a whole.
The Journal said, quote, the U.S. had previously assessed that Putin would not provoke a NATO country while he is still fighting in Ukraine. But that assessment changed earlier this year as Putin is squeezed in Ukraine and under pressure at home to secure a victory.
And I know we reported on this, but sometimes it feels, more confirmed, let's just say, when you have others that pick up that reporting as well. People with, more prominent accounts, people with more, bigger followings as well, when they touch base on the same or similar aspects of things that you were talking about. I don't want to say first, but beforehand as well. Like it kind of, lends a little credibility to the show here at Blunt Politics.
Back to the idea that Russia is unlikely at any point to pause offensive operations across the front. They need the momentum of success in the war zone. They say Russian President Vladimir Putin could try to test NATO's resolve with a limited assault on an allied country in the next few years, according to a new U.S. intelligence report that posit possible scenarios ranging from a cyber attack to a small-scale land incursion. I'm a little less sold on that. When we talk about what Russia is or is not capable of right now, a land assault is in the...
And I don't see how you can consider a cyber attack by Russia, a further... Like, they've been doing that. Like, Russia considers themselves at war with the United States, whether we consider us at war with them directly or legally speaking. That's been a role. That's been kind of an angle of attack by the Russians for quite some time now, where they've been at war with the wider West, at war with the general West, and us obviously being encompassed in that, have been on the receiving end of multiple cyber attacks. Obviously, we've talked about them trying to interfere in elections as well. Like, for a long time, they've had their eye in focus as far as the war footing is concerned for the United States, and we just have been very slow to reciprocate, very slow to to kind of catch that and to kind of act on the same page, act on the same wavelength as they are to us. But, it's cost us, and it's because Donald Trump, has that love, admiration, affiliation, and affection for for Vladimir Putin, that we all know that he has.
Less than capable today. To be honest, the Russian military is very occupied in Ukraine. I find that unlikely. The Russian Air Force pretty significantly degraded from the onset of this war, not just in terms of the platforms lost, but the hours flown on some of these aircraft, the air defense systems that have taken a beating. unlikely, in my personal opinion, that we see any sort of land incursion anytime soon, even into the Baltics. But when we get into that kind of gray zone hybrid warfare, it's already happening. It happened even more, or happened again here in recent days. They say the assessments described by U.S. officials come amid a shortfall in certain critical munitions that the military would need to confront Russia or China in a potential future war.
Like I said, that power projection, people watch that. People look at that, right? It ebbs and flows, and it's kind of been on a singular path for quite some time. But seems like the ebbs and flows might be back as far as power projection throughout the world. Alliances, trade partners and stuff like that. Like, we seem to be seeing a pretty substantial shift brought upon by, again, the instability from Donald Trump as president here in his second term. First term we could go back to, undoubtedly. But yeah, it just seems to be something that's pretty consistent in conversation as to like how directly responsible Donald Trump is for a lot of these things that we're seeing here.
Attacking NATO during a continuing war with Ukraine would be to fracture the alliance. A couple notes there. It's been all over the news in recent days. Multiple outlets, multiple officials off the record or kind of speaking on background, talking about the shortages in U.S. munitions. No doubt adversaries around the world are paying attention to that. And it does signal an opportunity. Right?
Well,
whether or not
that's what we've been saying. And again, just further confirmed here by other channels, by other outlets. That's all. I mean, things that you can see with your own eyes, things that we can clearly call out here, and don't necessarily need to rely on these other things. But it's nice to hear that people recognize that the bad actors, the autocrats, the dictators, these small groups and proxies throughout the world that are looking to do harm, that are looking to do, dirty deeds, whatever they may be, are looking upon these times, looking upon these moments, and looking for the weakness in NATO, the weakness in the United States. Maybe when they don't have the ability, if we start so many wars, if these guys decide to get on the phone together and say, hey, if you decide to start a conflict over there, we decide to start a conflict over here, you guys decide to start a conflict down there, like, there's no way that the United States will have the ability, the capabilities to mitigate against all of those threats. Like, specifically talking the interceptors, like, hypothetically speaking, if all our enemies get on the phone and say, okay, we're going to launch all of our missiles at the same time, or at least as many missiles as we have the capability of doing so, like, that's going to be a fucking problem. We don't necessarily right now have the ability to mitigate against that if that were to happen. And again, hypothetically speaking, but who knows what alliances form out of this and what bad actors decide to enact what based upon the instability and the shift that we're seeing now, at least with power projection throughout the globe.
Anybody wants to take advantage of it. If we are really as low as some of those assessments suggest, it opens the door for someone to try something. Now, again, to stress here, the goal is not a war with NATO. Russia doesn't want that. They know that would not end well. They're in a bad spot compared to NATO in a lot of ways right now.
No, their attempts is to fracture the NATO alliance in any way, throw a fucking wrench into the gears that is the NATO workings. If they can get them quarreling together, if they can get them not on the same page about sanctions or weapons packages, aid packages, like, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for instability. They're looking for a cracking. They're looking for a way in which they could point at with their propaganda the fact that NATO is slipping or the NATO alliance is cracking or something like that. Like, that's what they're going for. It's not necessarily, trying to engage Article 5 or have NATO as a defense force start attacking Russia on the whole. That's definitely not what they want to see happen. But they want to poke that bear up until that point. Like, they want to, come as close to that line of Article 5 and having NATO actually come together as a defensive alliance, like they should, in my opinion, a long time ago against this Russian horde. But that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to tiptoe as close to that line as humanly possible, continue to poke that bear that is NATO, and see if they can stir up any bullshit. And that way their propaganda can take advantage of whatever feuds or, inconsistencies in reporting or differences of opinion that come out of these different, different issues that are stoked up by Russia.
Instead, what they're trying to do is fracture the alliance, get NATO to focus on anything other than their war in Ukraine, squabbling between each other, wondering, will Article 5, an attack on one is an attack on all, will that actually hold up? The more that Russia can kind of...
And no, we didn't watch this before, and no, we didn't run through this before.
Create and stir that infighting and the questioning within the alliance, the better it is for Russia. So to that end, what we've been seeing recently is a constant test of NATO airspace. Drone swarms in Poland back in September 2025, a missile impact in Poland last month, July 2026, a few months ago, May
And
2000.
all under the facade of a lot of the reporting being accidental, right? Geez, these accidental missile launches that went into, Polish territory, or these accidental drones that they were supposed to strike Lviv, but unfortunately they made it, over the border somehow. And these, not so accidental when you put all of this together and you look at the different ways in which they're trying to, again, like you just said, test or fracture the NATO alliance. There's purpose and there's meaning behind just these little erratic strikes that you see every now and again that happen to go over into NATO borders or a country that's in the NATO alliance. But it's often reported as a mistake and probably a failure of the technology and a malfunction somehow. But I'm not too readily able to believe all of that bullshit. But all right, what do you say we get you guys out of here? You can enjoy the rest of your Sunday. What do we got? We got a day off tomorrow for myself. I actually have a tea time. First tea time, I think, this year, tomorrow, to see if I can clear my head of all this nonsense. Typically, that's what you need to do. Every now and again, take some time out for yourself. I know everybody's going through it. It's a lot of mental anguish. It's a lot of anxiety, keeping you up to speed with, all this politics stuff. And especially if you're keeping up with the geopolitics as well. It takes a lot out of you. So everybody needs to read a book, walk the dog, take a run, go for a boat ride, whatever you do that's, that clears your head, that works for you. Make sure you're taking the time for yourself as well. But let's get into thanking some people here on the Venmo side of things. As we always say, anybody that went in to utilize this Venmo up here in my left hand, your right hand corner, I believe, if I didn't have that backwards. I think that's right. But yeah, that's the quickest and easiest way to get your contribution into the channel, which we greatly, greatly appreciate. Every dollar or two that gets sent in. Again, that's all we ask for here on this channel. Anything above and beyond that, if you want to send it in, if you think we're deserving of, we won't stand in your way. But all we ask for is a buck or two from people in the chat that are in the financial position to do so. Thank you guys for, again, keeping the lights on, keeping the microphones working, keeping some food in the belly, as, again, this is the way we make our livelihood here. We find it that important to make sure that we do this pretty much on a daily basis here on Blunt Politics, to call out the bullshit, the propaganda. So, again, thank you to everybody that supports, that is, here involved in the chat, in the community, every single show, or any show, whichever shows that you guys watch on a weekly basis. It's all greatly appreciated. So first up today on the Venmo side of things is going to be Bry Guy. Bry H, thank you so much. A little something to help things move along. Slava Ukraina, he says. Thank you for the 10, Bry. Always very much appreciate that. Thank you to Thomas in Victoria. Happy birthday to Victoria from Bowie. Oh, happy birthday, Victoria. Thank you so much for everything that you guys have done over the years for this channel. Very much appreciate that. And thank you, obviously, Tom, for sending that in on behalf of Bowie. Bowie, obviously, being there. Very well-behaved dog, I should say. But, we got along. We did get along. We started to bond at the end of that. He did have to wear basically a Bane shield. But other than that, we were buddies. So thank you so much, Tom, for everything that you've done, how much you've contributed and been so generous for this channel. And then, obviously, happy birthday again to Victoria. Hopefully I'm getting that right in that message, Bo. Thank you. And then Roger and Karen, very much appreciated your contribution. Trump is a loser. I think we all second that. Thank you so much for the Ukraine flags as well. Very much appreciated. Let's see if there's anybody else. Allison, thank you so much. You were trying to sneak one in there. I see you for the $5 contribution with the let's fucking go. Right back at you, Allison. Thank you guys so much for everything that you've done for this channel. Let me see if there's any more that I'm missing. I hate missing people. So it was Allison. And then over the last couple of days, as I typically do, Brian H. again. Thank you to Marty. Thank you to Cynthia. Thank you to Brian H. again. Thank you to Tom. Much appreciated, Tom. Unfortunate altar boy once again. Hope you're doing well. Sending good vibes your way. And then Nancy, as always, thank you so much, Nance, for everything that you've done for this channel. Continue to do for this channel. It is very much appreciated. So yeah, much appreciated for everybody on the Venmo side of things. Let's see if there's anybody over here on YouTube that we got to thank. Of course there is. Always, you guys are just unbelievable. Let's go. Starting it off here, and I believe Bry started it off in the chat. If I'm not mistaken, I'd have to scroll all the way back, but I do want to credit Brian H for the first super chat today in the old Chatsky there. So much appreciated to you, Bry Guy. But sorry, I think you sent that in just before we went live, if I'm not mistaken. So Wes, thank you for being second on today's list. Hoping and praying for all wars to cease. Much appreciated for the 1111. Hopefully everybody's making a wish Thank you, Wes, and we're right behind you with that sentiment as well. And then thank you to David Weiss for the 666. Let's go, brother. It's my 70th birthday, and I'm a bad influence. Well, happy birthday, David. W's in the chat. Good vibes being sent your way. Hopefully you're enjoying your birthday weekend. You don't look a day over 56, I'd say. So you're doing well. You're doing well. So happy 70th. Don't be a bad influence on too many people. I know it's rich, me saying that, so I guess I'll slip my way into the background. I'll go Homer Simpson my way back into that bush. But yeah, be careful. Make sure you're getting home safe wherever you're doing, wherever you're celebrating your 70th. But happy birthday once again, Dave. Thank you to Roxy Tracy for the 440 joules with the Uncle Alert. And I got to find out what these things mean. I'm starting to figure out what the joules mean, but the secondary aspect of it, the Uncle Alert, I don't know. You calling me old? You calling me old, or is that just some random thing that YouTube's doing? I'm not sure. But either way, Roxy, I appreciate you. Thank you so much to Yakov, member for 19 months. We can win against the fascist. Victory! Well, I appreciate that sentiment. I appreciate that positivity, Yakov. And again, anybody that can toss into the GoFundMe I had posted on Blue Sky to help kind of alleviate the pressures that Yakov and his wife and his family are under during his kind of medical complications, we'll call them. So appreciate you, Yakov, for showing up under the strenuous times that you're under. And thank you for being here for 19 months. Thank you for being a great mod. And again, I'm right behind you with that sentiment and that positivity. I do believe and shall believe and continue to believe that we will kick the fascist ass, not only in the midterms, but in the general upcoming election as well. So thank you so much to Yakov. Bobby Slacks. What's up, Slacks? You humdinger, you. 1,000 joules with a GOAT trophy. Hopefully that's the greatest of all time, followed up by a $10 contribution from Slacks. Much appreciated. Slava Ukraini, as always, love to you, brother. Love to all my fellow Bryantologists. Has anyone noticed that Chump can't pronounce the a hard T? Words with T in them, he drops out the T. And I'm sure that's just, again, a side effect of the ongoing dementia and the fact that his brain's been leaking out of his ears and into his shoes for the last, 10, 15, 20 years at this point. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of different complications that we're going to start recognizing and noticing. The slurred speech is definitely one of them. The sweaty, wrinkled, just look of the guy, his new wig, his new hairstyle that he's gotten. I don't know if you can throw that in there as well, but, I appreciate you, Slacks. Thank you for the $10 contribution. Right behind you is Ricky, throwing in 5 gifted Boston Bryant memberships. Much appreciated for that, Ricky. Thank you so much for gracing us with your presence here in the chat, and obviously gracing us with that fantastic picture of your pup as well. Much appreciated. I don't know if that's just a fan is blowing on the dog and his eyes are closed, or if you have a blind dog, which is, very, very sweet of you if you do. But either way, it's a very cute picture. So thank you for sending that in as well. Thank you, Tina, for the 10 joules and the thumbs up. Much appreciated, Tina. Hope you're having a fabulous weekend. Thank you for spending a little bit of your weekend here with us at Blunt Politics. Colleen, as always, so appreciative and, just everything that you do for this channel. It's hard for me to get the words out, obviously. So thank you for the gifted 5 Boston Bryant memberships, as always. Much appreciated. Thank you to Specs 00. Is, quote, woman expert, not an expert on women, just came. No, it's just I think I said military. I think I said female military expert. If we're talking about the CNN clip, she was a former, I think it said military strategist, if I'm not mistaken. But I just wanted to make sure that I differentiated between the guest and the anchor as well. But I don't know if I misspoke, if I said it wrong, my apologies if I put too much emphasis on the wrong syllable. But thank you, Specs, for the $2 contribution. I'll see if I can keep track of that from now on. But thank you, Moms, as well, for my Sunday tithing. Not feeling too great after traveling. Love you, Brian. I know. I fucking went through that myself. I figured there was going to be a day or two that I was going to be knocked out and kind of down for the count. But Jesus Christ, it was almost as long as my trip. It was about, I don't know, have I been back 2 weeks yet? If I haven't, feels like I have. But feels like it's been that long. It's taken me to kind of recuperate and recover and, be able to keep my eyes open at 1 in the afternoon, 2 in the afternoon. So I feel your pain, Moms. We're sending you good vibes, though. Hopefully you get some time to relax and recuperate. That would be fantastic. So thank you for spending a little bit of your time here with us. As always, we appreciate you. We love you. And we hope you have a wonderful weekend. Thank you to Specs 00 once again. Polish Italian by way of Connecticut, Massachusetts. Feeling simpatico. Oh, there we go. I love the New England. I love the New England representation here in the chat. Always love to see the locals. Much appreciated for being here. Much appreciated for representing the area as well. Hope you have a wonderful weekend. Thank you to Don C for the Tool Jewels with the sparkles. The Tool Jewels. That sounds dirty, Don. That sounds dirty. Thank you for giving me your Tool Jewels. But no, I appreciate you, brother. Thank you for being here. Always good to see you in the chat. Thank you to Roxanne1979 for the 10 jewels and the W's in the chat. Right back at you, Roxanne. Thank you to Jim. Much appreciated for the 5 Boston Brian memberships. Gifting those like a saint that he is. We got another 440. Maybe is the 440 is the Uncle Alert associated with the 440 number? Is that what I'm getting out of this? Or are you guys all calling me old? I'm not sure. I'm not sure, Shocky, but I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Boston Brian is the GOAT, the president of peace. Thing didn't work out. The president of peace thing didn't work out, so I'm looking forward to the president of rest in peace. Again, it's tough. It's tough. I'm on the I'm kind of like half on the train of that one and then half on the train of like it would be fantastic to watch the guy just suffer in silence. Definitely probably not going to be in silence, but you know what I mean, to see like the ailments actually take effect and have that like long impacting, like you can't golf and like, you know what I mean? Like the opposite of seeing rest in peace, the opposite of that. Like I'm kind of half and half. Like he deserves to be rotting away in a prison cell, which obviously we're unlikely to see, which we've all kind of come to the conclusion of, after he got in for the second term. But, you'd like to see some sort of penance, right? You'd like to see some sort of accountability and justice. And it looks like, old age, dementia, physical inabilities, and like the physical decline of Donald Trump is that accountability and justice, or at least the only thing that we're likely to see. Maybe, trials and shit, but, who knows if he's going to last that long. You know what I mean? But Shifty Lincoln, I appreciate you. Thank you for being here, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Thank you for the 5. Ruben Michaels, let's go. Appreciate you. Thank you for the 5. Slava Ukraini, Heroyam Slava to you. Thank you to Jennifer sneaking in with the $2 contribution. Big salute to you. Hope you have a great weekend as well. Thank you to John McDonough. Shout out to you. Just as depressing as always. Not your fault. Is what it is. Good job, Brian. Well, like I said, I'm sorry. This is just kind of the realities of the situation that we face right now. I don't go into every show making it look like and be like, how can I make it as depressing as possible today? No, it's just like, what happened today? What's the news? What do we have to talk about? What do we have to go through? What does everybody have to be, kind of up to speed on and educated about? And, hopefully, in a relationship with all of the other channels that you watch, we kind of fill whatever void that is lacking in the other accounts and with the other channels that you watch as well. So again, I don't, claim to be the only source of news that you should watch, but I do feel like it's in, it would fit in well with the other platter, the other scattering of, different independent channels that are doing a great job reporting on some of these similar things, if not, different things as well. So thank you to John. Thank you to Trina right behind John with the 440. I think a 440's got to be with the Uncle Alert. I think that's got to be some sort of affiliation there. I'm starting to gain knowledge here a little bit. But thank you, Jimmy Two Soups, for at People Unite 3605 to go buy a clue. Did we have a troll? Trolls are good though. Welcome the trolls. We welcome all trolls. Again, unless you're being bigoted, racist, homophobic, transphobic, violent, overly aggressive, doxing people. Like that's, again, just a few of the only ways that you're going to get booted out of here. Otherwise, disagreements, calling me an idiot, calling me a moron, like typically that stuff's okay if you have some way to back it up. Typically you don't, but, trolls are welcome. All goes to boost us in the old algorithms. But I appreciate the contribution. I mean, even on behalf of a troll is just showing how awesome you are, Jimmy. So appreciate you. And then rounding it out today, thank you to Gemini66 for the $1.99 being sent in. Hey, Boston, thanks for working on a Sunday. Typically, we're always here. We're always here on Sundays. It's actually typically the main show that people check out is the Sunday show. It's just because I think it was the first day that we've always done this. I think that was the OG day that we started the podcast. Oh, hold on. I see Venmo's coming in. Can't let you guys skirt by and not get your show. Oh, thank you, Jenny Faye. Jenny Faye sent in 20 on Venmo, says, hello, listening as always. Glad you had family time and some time to relax tomorrow. Hugs to all. Well, right back at you, Jenny Faye. I know you're putting in a lot of work on these subjects as well. So hopefully you're getting your time to relax and recuperate. Thank you so much for listening. As always, I hope you and Corey are doing well. Thank you guys for all of the again, generosity that you've shown, appreciation that you've shown, and just support for the channel in general. So keep rocking. Thank you so much for being here. And again, I wanted to make sure I didn't miss that one. But yeah, as far as working on a Sunday, I think that's the OG day of the Boston Brian podcast, the Blunt Politics podcast here. So I think that's kind of what everybody associates us with. But we're also on Tuesdays, Wednesdays twice, Thursdays, Fridays, and then we typically give ourselves Saturday and Mondays off because, we can't do this 7 days a week, for Christ's sakes. What are you going to do? But thank you so much to Gemini, Jimmy Two Soups, Trina, John, Jennifer, Ruben, Shifty, Lincoln, Shockey, Jim, Roxanne, Don, Specs, Moms, Colleen, Tina, Ricky, Bobby, Slacks, Yakov, David, Roxy, Tracy, Wes, and Brian. All of you guys for keeping this channel running. Very much appreciated. I will see you guys on Tuesday, hopefully with a good score to report from tomorrow, or at least just some, like I said, recuperation time to get away from the nonsense, the craziness, and the insanity of today's politics and geopolitical atmosphere, as it were. So stay loud, stay proud, stay aggressive, stay informed, and stay in the goddamn fight. We need you. We appreciate you. Make sure you're getting out of your seats and into the streets because we're just not pissed off enough. But make sure you're keeping your head on a swivel out there. Stay safe because we need you within this chat. We need you within these communities. So, all right, I'm Boston Brian. This is Blunt Politics. Hit that like button on the way out. Subscribe to the channel. A lot of you guys watch but are not subscribed for some reason. So please make sure when you hop out of the chat, just see if you've hit that little button. That's all it is. A little button doesn't cost you a single cent to click. And really, really goes a long way to help this channel. So if you could like, share, subscribe, if you find a funny moment in the show, clip it out, share it on social media, and I'll be happy to repost and share it on whatever site that you guys are on. So, all right, I'll see you guys Tuesday. I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. Hit that like button on the way out. Thank you to the mods, as always. I continue to say blessed with the best mods on social media, and I truly, truly believe that. So thank you to the best community on social media and the best mods of that community on social media. So I'm out of here. I'll see you guys Tuesday. Appreciate you.
Вітаю, Бостон Брайан. Мій позивний танцор. Я представник 72-ї бригади. Дякую тобі і твоїм підписникам за цей донат, за цю чудову машину, яка буде нас возити усіх на позиції, захищати Україну і наближати перемогу. Разом усі до перемоги. Дякую.
Inviting Americans from all across the country to come.
Kidney has a very special place in the heart. It's an incredible thing.
Taking him back to Nevada where he's wanted for banging horses. He says rectum damn near killed him.
You're a nation that just recently heard that Saudi Arabia and Russia will repeat you. Obama. They're just getting acclimated. You know what that means? Acclimated. Yesterday.
Вітаю, Бостон Брайан. Мій позивний танцор. Я представник 72-ї бригади. Дякую тобі і твоїм підписникам за цей донат, за цю чудову машину, яка буде нас возити усіх на позиції, захищати Україну і наближати перемогу. Разом усі до перемоги. Дякую.
You'll have a group of Venezuelan killers, street gangs, occupying the town with MK-47s. I know that gun very well. I got to know it very well. I've become an expert on guns. Eating the dogs, the people that came in, they're eating the cats, they're eating the pets of the people that live there.
Cacophony, a crescendo, a finale, a coup de grace.
Gettysburg, what an unbelievable battle that was. The Battle of Gettysburg, what an unbelievable, I mean, it was so much and so interesting and so vicious and horrible and so beautiful in so many different ways. It represented such a big portion of the success of this country. Gettysburg, wow. I go to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania to look and to watch. Somebody said, is that a Trump statement or is that real? To officially name the undisputed, when did this come out? Nothing bad can happen, it can only good happen.
Вітаю, Бостон Брайан. Мій позивний танцор. Я представник 72-ї бригади. Дякую тобі і твоїм підписникам за цей донат, за цю чудову машину, яка буде нас возити усіх на позиції, захищати Україну і наближати перемогу. Разом усі до перемоги. Дякую.
I'm standing up here bashing the living shit out of Nazis. I'm standing up here bashing the living shit out of Nazis.
When you ran out the healthy arms, you ran out of really healthy, they had great arms, but they ran out. It's called sports, it's called baseball in particular.
Go fuck yourself.
Bad news, bad news. Even when it's good news, it's bad news.
Always calling me Little Marco. And I'll admit, the guy, he's taller than me, he's like 6'2", which is why I don't understand why his hands are the size of someone who's 5'2".
Referred to my hands, if they're small, something else must be small. For the rest of my life, I have the curse that I have little hands. Little hands.
Hey, you got a little chubby going there.
Get off my plane. Call them dumps, big massive dumps.
You know what uranium is, right? This thing called nuclear weapons and other things, like lots of things are done with uranium, including some bad things.
It feels so lovely to be here tonight. What a beautiful out. Give yourselves a round of applause. You're so lovely.
Вітаю, Бостон Брайан. Мій позивний танцор. Я представник 72-ї бригади. Дякую тобі і твоїм підписникам за цей донат, за цю чудову машину, яка буде нас возити усіх на позиції, захищати Україну і наближати перемогу. Разом усі до перемоги. Дякую.
Yes, of course, hence the name. Movement, it moves a certain distance, then it stops, you see. A revolution gets its name by always coming back around in your face. You tried to kill me, you son of a bitch. So welcome to the revolution.
Man, I ain't falling for no banana in my tailpipe.
My superpower is being honest. I will eat my neighbors.
This week it was reported that an illegal alien, and you just look at this, what's happening.
Oh, get those lights off! Off! Turn them off, they're too bright, turn them off!
Builds the wall the way he built Trump Towers, we'll be using illegal immigrant labor to do it.
Brian, you're drunk. You're drunk.
crescendo, a finale, a coup de grace.
I'm just an average guy who read public documents where the elite said they were going to enslave us and destroy America. And I'm not going to be like yuppie scum and deny the threat to my country. I'm going to fight back.
The big, fat, sloppy United